start our regular town council meeting of Tuesday, September 13th at 5 p.m. We have all of council present. We'll start by the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Goodbye, guys. Dear Lord, we just come thanking you for the blessings. We'd like to ask for your continual guidance in our leadership abilities. We'd like to ask that you not only protect and watch over our community, but all communities. We ask that you provide citizens as well as leaders with the know-how to know that it's not about initiating any private agendas, but everything for the betterment of the community, leaving a better place for those of us who come behind us tomorrow. And these are the blessings we continue to ask. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Ma'am. Next is the adoption of the agenda.
No, ma'am.
Any changes?
No, ma'am.
Okay, is there a motion to accept the agenda? Second. Any discussion? Okay, aye. Opposed? That's unanimous. Next, we have minutes of August 9th, the regular meeting minutes. If y'all had a chance to look over them, are there any changes? If not, is there a motion to accept? Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That's unanimous. Item 6, presentation, celebrations, and recognition. We have our quarterly report by the Hilton Head Island Bluffton Chamber of Commerce. Ariana, you are up.
Mayor and Council, thank you for the opportunity to present. My name is Ariana, Pernice, and the Vice President of the Destination Marketing Organization for the Hilton Head Island Bluffton Chamber of Commerce. Today I'm here to present on our fiscal year Q4 and our out-marketing efforts.
We're going to start with the metric company.
This opportunity here shows that for April, May, and June, we were able to increase our rate for, again, heads and beds. We produced monthly year-over-year growth. This ultimately resulted in overall growth in our RevPAR numbers. So again, our destination metrics, as it accounts for ADR and RevPAR, were up. It's just a great story to be able to tell in Q4. Social media, we had a really great opportunity to partner with the Juneteenth celebration. You can see those efforts reflected in the numbers and the growth year over year in this time frame, both on Facebook and Instagram. And those are just a couple snapshots from what was posted in their engagement. The website as well did extremely well for Q4, again with our social media really tying back into the website and generating those website hits and also referrals to our area businesses. So that growth is also great to see in the Q4 timeframe. Overall, for this Q4, we had 41 events with over 1,200 participating in those events. And then we saw some really great strength in our public relations efforts. Again, those earned media and that ad value, again, is at that $92,000. We are on pace for our official Bluffton vacation planner to be cycled through the 25,000 units by the end of the year, and we're in the process of developing the 2023 vacation planner. So it's a really exciting opportunity. People are embracing the destination, and they're excited to see all those great stories come to life. And 2023 is going to be a really exciting opportunity as well. Deeper storytelling, bigger imagery, really exciting opportunity to connect online as well. Thank you very much.
Sorry, any questions? The quarterly doing a quick update. Now just a second. Thanks, Ariana. Next, we have Beaufort County Transportation.
Opportunity, mayor, members of council. Number one, I just want to thank staff at Bluffton, Kevin, Kim, Constance, and Dan as well. We've been setting up regular meetings with staff just to try to keep everyone informed, again, sharing ideas and sharing resources, really. So with that, I'll kind of kick off just a quick or a brief county update. Stop me at any point, just if anyone has any questions. So the first one is one that we've been talking about for a little while. It even came up in the sales tax presentation. It's the SC 170 near-term improvements. This project extends really from Webb all the way through to 462. So again, we're looking at safety, congestion, capacity improvements along that corridor as part of a secondary or complementary project. We've also asked for AECom to provide us a design for the Webb Seagrass intersection as well as the Oldfield intersection. So again, the Webb Seagrass is is within the city. So just to let you all know, we've been working with Kevin on that. I know there's some development opportunities that are occurring at that intersection. So again, we'll be working through that as the traffic impact study becomes available and incorporating that into our design. Next one is River Ridge Flat Creek intersection improvements. So this is at Hampton Lake and the River Ridge School. This is a traffic signal that was a request by both the school as well as the neighborhood at Hampton Lake. So we are literally days away from this project starting. This is going to be a temporary wood pole installation to begin with, just because of supply chain issues and contractor issues. We're not able to install or construct the full intersection from day one. So it's going to be a temporary installation. It will have push buttons to be able to get the kiddos across the street from Hampton Lake to the school. And then we'll follow that up with a permanent installation next summer when school is out. Again, to make sure that we have the least amount of impact possible to the school parents coming and going from River Ridge. Next one is Burnt Church roadway improvements. I know that this one is near and dear to Bluffton's heart. This includes both pedestrian accommodations as well as some safety improvements on Burnt Church. So back to the 2018 sales tax, there were a number of pathways that were proposed with that sales tax. Burnt Church was one of them, but as the budgets became more apparent, we had to pare that down. I believe it started with 24, we had to pare it down to 10. So a way to make sure that this project still happened and being able to provide those pedestrian pathways, we incorporated this with an additional improvement to Burnt Church. So this one is from Alljoy to Bluffton Parkway. Again, this is we're not going to increase the capacity on the roadway. We're not going to widen it to 4 lanes or anything of that nature. It's to give a center turn lane to be able to get turners out of the way from a safety perspective, as well as then provide those bicycle and pedestrian accommodations. And again, please stop me. If you have questions along the way, go ahead and ask.
I do.
Yes, ma'am.
And we can all kind of treat it workshop. First, is there a possibility to get the plans or the schematics of everything you're talking about?
Absolutely, and that's one that we'll share with staff as well. So we have just kicked off. We had our very first kickoff meeting with Parish and Partners last week. So we're just working through what that cross section looks like between turn lanes, between pedestrian accommodations. As that becomes a little more apparent and they do their survey work, for sure we'll have staff included, and then I'm happy to come and present anytime that you all want.
Mainly just so staff's involved too. And I want to go back to others, but we'll go through because I didn't stop you. The other thing on Burnt Church, with the recent vote on y'all's end, and I don't know if it went through readings or not, Logan was really pushing about golf carts on the pathways. Are you now going to consider making maybe the bike lanes wider, or are you just going to go with keeping the same width for pathways? And
yeah, that was actually voted down for the golf carts on the multi-use path. I think that will be an ongoing discussion though, because regardless of whether that was voted down today, again, we may We have done some research in the way of what does that pathway look like if we are going to allow golf carts on a multi-use path. And Georgia really they have the most information on that, and really that becomes more like a 14-foot pathway as opposed to a 10-foot pathway. So, again, we just have to weigh those opportunities and those options and the challenges that are involved with that. For this design, we are at least proceeding forward with a 10-foot path on one side and a 6-foot sidewalk on the other.
How about bike lanes? Are you going to think about?
Bike lanes, so that was one of the things that came up with the discussion with Parish and Partners. We also want to put on-road bike lanes. So again, for those that feel comfortable traveling with the vehicles on the roadway, we definitely want to provide that. And then again, clearing that multi-use path for the less skilled bicycle rider, as well as strollers and different kids' activities as well.
Did anybody want to stop them on that? Or?
No, you pretty much done it.
I have a question. On the 170 that you talked about a minute ago from near Dale Webb, I guess McGarvey's all the way to 462.
Yes, sir.
Refresh my memory. Where's the funding coming from?
The funding from that one is there. There's impact fees. There is some old leftover funding from the 2006 sales tax that's actually going to help cover some of that, as well as partnerships with both Jasper County and Hardinville. So again, we're working through the funding on that. Now I know that there was, when we presented on the sales tax, that's why we're calling this the near-term improvements. So this is more the congestion, capacity, just minor safety improvements along that corridor. We're looking at a bigger project that will make improvements to both 170, 278, as well as Argent Boulevard as part of a bigger project.
Okay, that's where Senator Davis comes in with his proposal.
That was prior. That was part of that sales tax.
Right.
That we are now shifting to 2024. It appears.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Mayor, do you have a question?
Yes, ma'am.
So in terms of the roadway improvements, the one that you have up now, as you mentioned, there will be additions for pedestrian accommodations or an enhancement of it. Do you have an idea of what that design looks like?
For Church, it will look like a 10-foot multi-use path on one side of the street, and then a 6-foot sidewalk on the other. And that will be for that entire length from Bluffton Parkway all the way down to Alljoy. So then a couple of other projects that we have going on. So to connect to that last project, we do have the Alljoy Road Sidewalk project. So this was one of the approved multi-use path sidewalk projects from the 2018 sales tax. So that's a 6-foot sidewalk from Alljoy Burnt Church along Alljoy from Burnt Church to Thomas Lot. And then another one impacting Bluffton is last night at council, there's a short segment between Bluffton Road and Sopperton that was just never completed for some reason. It's about 600 feet. So that piece of pathway on Bluffton Parkway will be completed with a project here in the next few months. So, and then one of the other things that came through council in the last couple of months was additional funding for pathways throughout the community. Two of those pathways that impact Bluffton are Shad, which is a 6-foot sidewalk, and Ulmer, which is proposed to be an 8-foot multi-use path. So those are ones that we will, again, hold public meetings on. We'll get the community involved, but two of those ones that Bluffton will benefit from that additional funding. The next one is the Buckwalter Parkway Access Management Study Phase 2. So you all saw the Phase 1 access management study that came through from Beal Engineering. You all approved that. Our council had approved that in February as well. So this is really looking at that next phase. So if you remember what that project was, it has to do with access management. It has to do with properly spacing out signals, requiring turn lanes at certain locations. Again, just kind of that overall traffic corridor study. So that one is underway as we speak. A couple other just maintenance type projects. We have a couple of road resurfacing projects at Willow Trace, Sandy Point, Knights Bridge, Sopperton, and Ann Smith Drive on the docket for this year. And then Harrison Island Road was paved this past year, and Rainbow Road is on the docket for next year. So just a couple of additional projects there. And then just some other projects just to bring up. So MC Riley, just right down the street, that roof repair is just about complete. I would like to say I had an exact open date, but it appears we have done a final walkthrough. Everything is looking good. I know the Parks Department just wants to make sure that everything is good with the chemicals in the pool, but we are really, really close to opening that pool back up.
They were there today. I saw Shannon and her team.
They were, and they're just checking over everything, and I think we'll have some good news towards the end of this week. In addition to that, then just some projects that focus in right around the All Joy boat landing. We're in the planning stages for repair to the boat landing, in the planning stages for parking lot repairs, and then in the planning stages for beach nourishment in that particular area. So again, some good projects focused in that area. So with that, that's what we have right now going on. And again, happy to answer any questions and happy to come and update you all whenever you see.
Any questions, Mr. Frazier?
Yeah, thank you for the updates with your presentation. I do have a question in regards to the MC Riley roof repair. Certainly glad to see that going on. A lot of residents have enjoyed, take advantage of that. Is there also a plan to continue the maintenance of that after that install, so we wouldn't have so much damage as to what transpired the last time from that?
I think that, and I've been here for a short period of time, but I think that, again, when budgets are low and you defer maintenance year after year, we end up with a situation like that.
Right.
We have everything on a maintenance plan now, and again, we want to make the best use of taxpayer dollars and make sure that we're keeping up with that maintenance.
Just two quick ones from the first couple of slides. One was you had mentioned something about Seagrass and Oldfield. Now, I was told at SoLoco that your council was voting on that Seagrass reroute, but I know staff has talked to you about the projects that have been coming forward that really would be a red light. So are we holding off on the U-turn kind of?
Yeah, so right now with that project, so those projects for design just went to council and were approved last night as well. That's for AECOM to look at those two, but we're going to hold on any kind. I actually had a discussion with AECOM today. We're going to hold on any design on those until we get the traffic impact analysis back from the developer that is doing that, who has the proposal right there at that intersection.
I've seen several times, because I've had some Sun City residents who are not in the town, but we all work really closely together to get money in a pot to put that up there. And I went out with them last week, and school buses cross over that. It is so dangerous. And with the projects that are zoned for that area, have every right to be built there, to see that U-turn, I just beg you to hold off on that and really work for a light when we have a lot of it already paid for. So, and then I'm going to ask on behalf of Oldfield residents who are not in the town limits, but what is that process? And I've been in Lats to hear it, but is that something the county can take on for a red light there sooner rather than later? And do you know anything about it?
Well, so we will also be looking at that intersection as a part of kind of that overall, and as far in the way of Lats, there's a corridor study along 170. So that is, again, a state maintained intersection, but we'll be working with the state as well as with Lats on that corridor study to see what the correct solution is there.
Good. Anything else, Mr. Hamilton?
Beach nourishment in All Joy. Can you tell us what that would entail and how much funding is allocated for that?
At this point, I will have to come back with you with those answers. I can get your contact and send that update. That is being done out of our Public Works Department, and it is just in the the initial planning stages. And I can send you what we have as far as an update, and then again update staff as we kind of progress through with anything more concrete on that.
Thank you. Come back often. I mean, I think it's real. 99% of these projects fall outside our town limits, but those residents breathe Bluffton the way we all do, and I know they're anxious to see some movement from pennies long ago.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
and again, I'm happy to come at any point, and I feel like
Come anytime.
communication is the key, and as long as we're communicating with the municipalities, that we'll be a better, more cohesive group. So.
Well, thank you very much. Next, we have public comment. Public comment, it's different in every municipality. This town does one public comment. We do not do public comment on agenda items, but it's one public comment. So please be mindful of that. When you come up, please give us your name and address. We need it for our minutes so we can record it correctly. Keep it to 3 minutes. Confine yourselves to the questions under the jurisdiction of this council. Be mindful and respectful. I'll say that, please, and have respect for the chamber that we are in. So I will turn that over to our town clerk, and she will call the names.
Sally Henderson.
Good evening.
I could say something about that much, yeah. But Sally Henderson's my wife.
Well, you never know.
On her way from Beaufort.
You're Mr. Sally
I'm
Henderson.
Mr. Sally, yeah.
So maybe your name and address.
My name
so
is
she'll
Bill
have it.
Henderson, and I live at 211 Wooden Wheel Lane in Cypress Ridge subdivision, the townhouse areas, and I'm here to discuss the D.R. Horton proposal. We're townhouse residents, so obviously we spent over $250,000 to live in a townhouse, so we kind of like townhouse living. So with that said, the owners of the townhouse, the proposed is the 29 units, which to us impacts us right on the edge. We're right at the edge of the street there. So it's extremely high density of homes in a 2-acre plot. The proposed townhouse design is inconsistent with the current townhouse designs that we're in. And I don't know if you're familiar, you've got one style on one side, and then we have the Kindred design, which is a one level on our side. So that's one of our areas that we'd like to compromise, is to try to keep consistent with the neighborhood. The removal, one of the big issues is the removal of obviously the trees. There's a landscaping berm that runs along Oak Barrel that gives us some privacy. That in the plan that they submitted is gone. There's 12 or 14 bald cypress trees in there that'll be taken out. Muley grass is it's a pretty nice area, and it also obviously given us some blockage there. The 44 units currently constructed on the opposite side of the entryway are going to cause quite a bit of a traffic issue, for everybody in the neighborhood. And adding 29 more units will obviously do a lot more too. The Cypress Ridge Architectural Review Committee is comprised solely of the D.R. Horton reps, along with sole control of the management company selected by D.R. Horton. The residents do not have any input in the color, style, or design. So that's, like I said, we're townhouse owners, so we like them, and we just would like to have a little say-so in it. Some of our possible compromises that we would like to look at is keep the existing berm on Oak Barrel, and along the entryway, there's also the same type of berm there, so that they could design whatever they put in there to keep those berms. Do not approve the extension of Wooden Wheel Lane through the new property because of the traffic issues that would cause. Reduce the number of townhouses from 29 to 22, which would eliminate the ones that are along the main entry.
Sir, if you could finish up, it's a 3-minute rule. If you could just get to the end of.
All right, and then I just have 2 more things there. and require additional overflow parking along the new townhouses because we just don't have any there, and then require development of the donated park that's at Argo Circle, and then and actually show us what a park plan would be, you know, not just give us 2 fields there. So,
Thank you, sir.
all right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Kim, please be mindful of the 3 minutes. It's a long council meeting, and just try to get your comments in within the 3 minutes.
Andrew Keel.
Evening, Mr. Keel.
Andrew Keel, 22 Trail Ridge Retreat, Bluffton, South Carolina, 29910. I was looking at the agenda, and it seems it's going to I was going to comment on the housing trust that I guess you guys are going to be looking at tonight, Cypress Ridge, and then the development that's potentially going in, I think, on the October 11th meeting, Pulte behind my subdivision midpoint. Anyhow, housing trust, I was going through the paperwork, and I don't know if I was reading everything, skimming it quickly, whether or not I got it, but it seems like a good idea. However, it seems like there was going to be about $7.2 million in funding over a 10-year period, and I guess my comment was going to be, is there anything to do to try to speed that up? Since in 10 years, as you know, the 9,000 houses in Hardyville that I'm sure are not going to be providing workers to our community, as they'll probably be mainly senior living or over 55 communities. You know, we're just going to have more and more people coming in, and lack of infrastructure and people structure to support everybody. So anyhow, I think it's a good thing. I just would like to see more money and sped up if possible. Cypress Ridge subdivision, you know, I was at the Planning Commission meeting, and I believe they denied that. I missed the last Planning Commission meeting because I was out of town, so I don't know if that came up again, but I think the Planning Commission denied their proposal, and from my understanding, this was supposed to be commercial land that they want to build residential on, stating that in the PUD it allows them to do that. I would push the council to deny the residential conversion and make them build commercial if they want to build commercial, if anybody does, because there's no commercial over in that area. I mean, there's a Publix, a liquor store, and an ice cream shop, no restaurants, and it would be nice for there to be some restaurants so I don't have to drive 30 minutes to get somewhere to wait an hour and a half to have a table. And then the last thing, Midpoint, just to give you a bit of an update, they, being Pulte, stated that they were going to provide us an agreement because there's a bit of a dispute over the road that runs to their community. They're supposedly going to build a second access point, but the road is our road owned by us with a questionable use agreement / easement that a developer put back in 2009 or 2010. Anyhow, I would urge you not to next week approve it until their traffic study is approved, and also they work things out with us on our road agreement, because they said they're going to give it to us a month ago. We haven't seen anything. Thank you.
And I took those notes. That's not on this agenda tonight, but I took some notes on that.
Skip Hoagland.
Good evening, Mr. Hoagland.
Skip Hoagland, Windmill Harbor. Ms. Solka, it seems you continue to mislead citizens about your activities. For example, several years back, you did an illegal membership drive using town employees on town time to help profit the criminally operated Hilton at Bluffton Chamber. This harmed your own respected official Greater Bluffton Chamber. How was this possible without you scheming with Chamber Bill Miles and the Bluffton town manager, Mark Orlando? And after you got caught, you said you would do the same membership drive for the Greater Bluffton Chamber. When exactly are you planning to do that? In fact, I received an email from Bluffton Chamber lawyer Robert Vox, who said, quote, "A tragic mistake. Hilton Head Chamber is not Bluffton's chamber, and town employees asking taxpayer support one chamber over the other is not right. Public is in an uproar and should be, and still is." And to the insult to injury, we found out that you and Orlando used tax monies to join the Hilton Head Bluffton Chamber, not your own town's lawyer, Chamber of Greater Bluffton Chamber. It was only after I caught you, I made you blatantly purchase memberships. That was an illegal use of tax money. The way I see it, the math works out to 511 new members for the that you owe $190,000 in damages owed to the honestly run Bluffton Chamber of Commerce. Ms. Soka, you clearly misused town resources, and you made to make this right as follows, and it was illegal. Publicly announce the Greater Bluffton Chamber as the town's official chamber, sell 501 memberships, or pay them $190,000 in damages. Ask the fraudulently operated Hilton Head Chamber to leave Bluffton, as having two competitive chambers in Bluffton causes confusion to local businesses. No other city in South Carolina has two official chambers. Remove the Hilton Head Chamber as the town's DMO, which the town favored over the Greater Bluffton Chamber without a contract or accounting transparency. This could not be any more corrupt than not offering this to your own chamber over the Hilton Head Chamber. You said residents thinking we were out making backroom deals. It is, and if it's an executive session, it's a contractual matter. I promise you that. Your entire mayoral tenure has been an ongoing backroom deal. However, you can at least make things right with the Greater Bluffton Chamber of Commerce, and then head back to selling real estate full-time instead of being a part-time, profit-playing mayor with multiple horses in the race, including your crooked developer lawyer middle finger. We have emails with you, Ms. Soka, and Bill Miles, and Hilton Head Chamber off your servers. We have emails off your servers that has you committing conspiracy and fraud. You are in real trouble, Ms. Soka, and I'm glad you're smiling. Your $50 million will be an FBI investigation, and Ariana Pernice of the Chamber just committed fraud once again with you. So you cannot use public funds for private purposes, and I'm glad you got a smile on your face, because I cannot wait to see when all this unfolds. Thank you so much.
Anyone else?
Valerie Bridges.
Everybody have a nice day.
That's a tough
Tough
act.
act to follow.
That's a tough, exactly.
Good evening.
All right. Hi, my name is Valerie Bridges, and I live at 262 Wooden Wheel Lane in Cypress Ridge. First off, I'd like to say that I don't like having all the public comments first. I'd like to have it better, with the particular item that you're talking about. I was one of several dozen homeowners that attended a meeting with D.R. Horton to review various options for the proposed area on Mill Creek Boulevard and Argo Circle. There were about 25 of us there about a week ago. The unanimous feeling at that meeting was that we do not want any of the space to remain commercial. And we like the proposed landscaping plans for the two Argo areas that we were shown. For myself, I am concerned that if any of the land stays commercial, we will have the debacle that is now Seagrass Station, where they have a pay-by-the-week hotel. We don't want that in our neighborhood. I understand that the original concept was for a live, work, play environment, but that original plan is now decades old, and time has moved on. There is ample space for commercial nearby, especially with the new Publix and new Riverside Village centers in walking distance from our neighborhood. In regards to the plan for the 29 townhomes in the proposed option, it's my personal feeling that the 29 townhomes in that spot will create traffic nightmares, particularly with the proposed road that goes through them to Mill Creek Boulevard. It will increase traffic down my road, Wooden Wheel Lane, and will cause a bottleneck at the intersection with Mill Creek Boulevard, which is a one-lane road, not a two-lane road. When you add that to the new daycare center on the other side of Mill Creek Boulevard, we're going to be in a big traffic mess at that light. So my preference would be to keep the townhomes in that area, have fewer of them. It was already referenced that we'd like to have the buffer on Mill Creek Boulevard so that you don't walk in and look at some of them, and that could happen if we go from 29 to 23 units, and don't put the road to Mill Creek Boulevard, which I believe is the whole reason they asked for permission in the first place, because it was a traffic thing. All in all, my priority is no commercial, which would require approving an amendment to the master plan.
whether it is this current proposal or perhaps they go back to the drawing board and find something of less density, which would be my preference. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Nora Walsh.
My concerns were just addressed. Thank you.
Ditto. Thank you. You can put her down as same concern as prior so we can get your
Mike Dolan.
minutes. Thank you, ma'am.
Hello.
Good evening.
Mike Dolan, 214 Argo Circle. I will echo a lot of Val's and Mr. Henderson's points. We did meet with DR Horton. They have two plans. Their preferred plan, which is on the agenda, and a second plan, which quite honestly is a leverage point. That includes the 7 townhomes on those 2 green spaces on Argo Lane, which would be incredibly ugly as a focal point to see the sides of townhomes as you come into the traffic circle. And we would look at them every single day from Argo Circle. So with that said, I think the best plan is the current plan with some suggested changes that Val and Will said. You could simply not connect to Mill Creek Boulevard. And ingress and egress could easily be done off of Oak Barrel, and that would limit some of the flow of the traffic. The second thing is there are 7 townhomes planned for right along Mill Creek Boulevard. That would just destroy green space, which we don't have very much of because of the overbuilding. So some ideas for that the residents came up with was maybe we can buy that property. Maybe those can be put someplace else within Cypress Ridge, or maybe DR Horton doesn't have to build them. There's something so sacrosanct about their 29 units that they have to have. They have to have 29 units. Maybe they just don't have to. Maybe they've made enough out of our neighborhood. So I hope you'll work with us. We don't want commercial. We don't want the townhomes on Argo Lane. So I hope, but when they leave, when they're done with this, we get stuck with everything. They've already not supported the HOA. They've not really supported the neighborhood very well. So please help us protect our neighborhood. Thank you.
Michael Beaumont.
Town Council and Mayor Selka. My name is Michael Beaumont. I live at 203 Argo Circle, and I'm here to talk about the amendment to the master plan. I have 3 daughters. They're 28, they're 23, and they're 18 years old. And we lived here for 14 years, moved here in 2008. But when my girls were younger, I had a lot of opportunity to serve them. That's what you do as a parent. You take every opportunity to serve, to protect, to provide. You use your authority for that. That's what our charge is. Funny thing is, my daughters got older. They didn't give me quite as many opportunities to use my authority to serve them. You get older, they get more independence. 28, 23, they kind of do what they want to do at that point. And now that I have a 28 and a 23-year-old daughter, I relish the opportunity to use my authority to help them, to lean in, to protect, to preserve, to do what I can to help them. So I'm taking my time tonight to point out those 2 words, opportunity and authority. None of us in Mill Creek, Cypress Ridge have authority to do anything about what's in front of us. That's why we're on this side of the table and you all are on that side. You do have the authority. You have the authority to step into this opportunity on our behalf to help us out. And we're asking you for that. To a person, none of us wants commercial space up front. None of us do. They're going to develop it one way or another. It's going to be residential. It's going to be commercial. Our preference is, for our sake, that it would be residential, whatever it would look like. Fewer townhomes, the cut through and the not cut through, the berm, the not berm, it's going to happen. And we're asking for you to step into this opportunity with your authority to protect us from what we want. So I'm very humbly asking you tonight to use your authority to help out and to listen to the residents of the community and to do what's in our best interest. Thank you.
Mary Hopper.
My question has been addressed.
by these guys from Cypress Ridge. I agree with them.
And then lastly, Sharon Brown. She said she may be running.
I'll keep an eye on that. On the two that kind of did ditto, Kim, can you just get their names in the record so they have it? Okay. Is that it?
That is it.
Public comment is over. Next are communications from mayor and council. We'll look to the left. Anything on this side? Mr. Hamilton?
A couple of things. First, we had Buck Island Road that was underwater, flooding in the ditch and the road during our heavy storm and rain. And I want to thank Eric, Kim, and Stephen. As leaders, they stood in the rain and in the water and trying to mitigate some of the concerns that one of the residents had of home flooding, as well as the personnel or staff from Public Works. They worked extensive time trying to make sure that we didn't have someone home to the water. That really means a lot when leadership put the hands on the plow in that kind of situation. So I want to thank you guys for doing that. Second, the Calhoun Street dock, when we approved that project, it was certainly my intention that we would try to take care of the entire community with the uses, that is boaters as well as fishers and crabbers. Is one of our only means of access to the water. So we have to give that kind of dual purpose and make sure that it's fair and is done in the manner that we give each and all of our users fair access. Now, saying that, there's too many boat slips there's boat slips in the area where we think crabbers and fishers should be. So immediately I'm asking council as well as staff to remove this boat slips that's on the far end of the dock and consider for staff to change the language that we have in our rules that says the fishers have to give more leniency to the boaters, or word to that effect. I think if we designate the area where the fishers or crabbers are, then that language should be both. My designated area and your designated area. So there shouldn't be any rules that favor one over the other. So I'm asking council to give that some consideration, especially tonight, to move the cleats or the slips so that we can and possibly put up a sign that says fishing and crabbing only.
Is that an ordinance?
It is.
So on the ordinance request, or not to go through and debate when nobody knew this was coming at us because we need it on paper, do y'all want staff to work on looking at the way the ordinance is read to make it more user-friendly, I guess, for boaters and crabbers and fishermen? Are y'all?
Yeah, well, that's fine with me. I'm not, I think we kind of used what the county ordinance said, for the rest of the public docks within the county. We kind of copied what their rules were, and those rules are that if you're fishing off of the dock and a boat's coming in, you have to move your line until the boat can get tied up. Doesn't mean you have to leave or anything, but I don't know what Fred's asking or what people are asking you. On which end of the dock are they wanting to be designated? You have to have one that's going to be designated for fishing and one that's not, I would think,
So to jump on his, and actually I was talking to Stephen a little bit today about the concern with one of the ladies that goes out and fishes. I don't know about the ordinance, so I'd like us to, if we want to talk about the ordinance, bring it back.
Sure.
But the cleats, I know, sitting right here, when we did that dock, we wanted 6 feet on the right and 6 feet on the left, in tide, out tide, reverse, because the lady who fishes here in the morning is going to go on the other end of the dock and fish in the afternoon when the tide changes. And cleats are all the way to the end of the dock on both sides. And I don't know, they weren't there in the past. I don't know over time they were put in or taken up, but I think what Fred is asking is to take 2 cleats where you go down the ramp. There are 2 cleats on that right side, and I never intended, personally wanted a boat where the little ladies are. And then if you go to the left, the 2 cleats on the inside are gone, but not on the outside. So I think that's something Public Works could look at.
Yeah, we just have to look at it and make sense of it, maybe even mark the dock.
But do you want us to work on an item, you know, not, because none of us know what the ordinance says, you know, have him bring it back to us and have a little more use?
We could review it, but I mean, I do remember that when we were debating this, we looked at both fishing and boating. And the fishing, what I've seen the majority of the time is at the far end of the dock, not where the ramp comes down. The far end is where the majority of people fish. And I think you want to keep it that way because of where the boat access, egress and ingress is in and out, right there near the ladder. So, yes, I agree with Pat, and if we time jump or something, that's an easy thing to accomplish.
Yeah, well, as far as where they fish, you fish on the, depends on which way the tide's going.
I remember you saying
Tide's going out, you're on the far end. If tide's coming in, you're on the ramp end. So
it sounds like we'd be open to looking at the ordinance.
We could fix that.
And maybe take some of us out there. I went and took pictures today. I absolutely see what was there was not what I thought was going to, I didn't think the cleats would be all the way to the end of the right and left side of the floating dock. So.
Yeah, and we'll be more than glad to. And part of the conversation that Councilman Hamilton and I had in doing some research, my understanding is there was a good bit of discussion and some of the cleats were moved and done as part of that discussion. But we're going to go back and look and try to figure out how we can make a recommendation and to provide fishing off both ends, make sure that's held in place and still make sure there's places for boats to dock. So we'll bring back a recommendation for council. We'll get it in the pipeline, maybe in October, November.
One more question on this discussion. Help me with this memory-wise. And I'm not saying we want to do this. I don't think we built the whole length of the dock with what we originally had accessible to us, did we? Did we?
For me, I felt like it was longer than it should have been.
It was longer than it should have
But
Had to change it to a commercial.
Well, but if it wasn't as long as it is now, it'd make the fishing even more tough.
can you look at the cleats before you put this on an agenda? Great.
Yeah, we'll look at the cleats because part of what was approved by council was where the boats were going to dock as well as the rules. So we'll bring all that back together so we can make sure that we get council's approval on both and go and have the discussion and review it.
So you're saying you want to wait before you move the cleats till October?
Well, my understanding is, and I'll lean on Derek and Kim, because I think if they're in here, did a lot of the research, or Pat. With the cleat positions approved as part of the ordinance, they're separate. So we can look at the cleats, but the ordinance for the giving right away to the boaters will have to bring separately.
If anyone wants to go with them and walk down there, I can send you the 2 pictures I took today. It's only 4 cleats.
And we have a quarterly workshop coming up that we can look at in October, but I hesitate until we know how we want to have the boat set up to start moving cleats around and have to move them again if it doesn't end up being right. But we'll look into it and we'll get it squared away, whether we move them now. If council wants to move now, we'll be more than glad to.
Let's put that as a priority, and whoever here wants to get with them to go down there. I don't think it's going to interfere. We're down there all the time. I love it. It's never been overrun by boats. I was always worried there'd be 12 boats there. They're not that many. They're respectful, but I don't want the culture of it all with the people fishing in there. I think is really important for the town.
We can get that addressed.
Unless 2 or less cleats will keep a boat from even going there, and then they have gear left and right. Got that. Anyone else, Mayor and Council? Any thoughts? Anything?
I just wanted to update everyone. I was fortunate enough to have the National African American Smithsonian Museum collaborated with me on a particular project, and we were able to shine a light on Bluffton, and they were very thankful and grateful of town staff and public works who coordinated their time here, and they definitely are looking forward to coming back and doing some more partnerships with us.
Is that an article or a production?
They've launched this program that's called Dreams and Treasures, that they'll be going around the country and highlighting and preserving Gullah history and culture, as well as Black history and culture. And the first segment was focused on Low Country, the Gullah life here in Low Country, as well as the history around quilting and quilting circles.
Can you get a link to that? Has it been aired?
It has not been aired yet. It will be. It will air in October through their streaming platform online, as well as it will be featured in their TV series. And so when that comes out, I'll update everyone and make sure it gets added. They will be giving credit to the town of Bluffton.
Somewhere. Tia or Debbie, somebody get it. Anything? Just two things. We usually have a proclamation in September for ovarian cancer month. We dealt with it in our Bluffton family. Staff member's wife passed away from ovarian cancer, and they have always brought us the ribbons to put up. And there's just been a loss a little bit in communication, but I did want everyone to know we were sending a proclamation to that group from the town of Bluffton that we do recognize this as ovarian cancer month. And you probably will see ribbons come kind of mid-September, hopefully, that we can put up. And then I went today to Benton House to read the proclamation to that one amazing group of men and women that are in an assisted living. It's National Assisted Living Month. And if any of you have had parents in assisted living, you know how treasured that is for people like that to spend so much of their day with these men and women who are living there. There are some with disabilities. There's some that just know they need to be somewhere else outside their home. I wish COVID wasn't so bad, because I think we should all go there and meet. It really gives you that's why I was smiling tonight. It gives you a fresh reflection on life and all the good that these people have given and helped us throughout their life. So they shouldn't be overlooked. And I'm sure they have family members that do not live here. So it was just nice. So it is National Assisted Living Month this month, along with Ovarian Cancer Month. And then on some of the comments, I think a couple of the ladies left, but we will address those. I wrote some notes, and we'll address it with staff when those projects come before us. On the midpoint, it's not going to be on this month's agenda, and I don't really follow Planning Commission until after it's over. So we'll follow that and see where that lies to. Okay, anything else? Moving on, formal agenda items. Natalie, you are up. Consideration of Accommodations Tax Advisory Committee funding, recommendations for quarter June 30th. I see Sam's here, almost front row and center.
Have a great rally crowd this evening.
I do. I see quite a few. It's almost a quorum.
Yes. Good evening, Mayor and Town Council. I'll go ahead and introduce outgoing chair, Sam. He's still going to be on the committee, but actually Christy Parker is our new chair.
Well, congrats.
And we also have Mr. Tim Wood. So they are available for any questions that you may have. ATAC met on August 16th to review one applicant for this quarter. We have over nearly $2.3 million available for distribution. That is split between both state and local accommodations taxes. During the committee meeting, I just want to briefly touch upon staff has taken back discussion and recommendations from the committee about updating the application to make it more electronic and user-friendly, and then also submitting it electronically. Additionally, they have recommended to remove out-of-market advertising budget from the 50-50 basis to allow for greater request and ask of the organizations.
Is that a concern that you have seen on that?
We have had...
We have so much money, but then we could turn around and have no money. So
We have had, actually, the May River Theater came in and ATAC had requested that they come back with a more enhanced budget for advertising to then permit for more funds for their performances. So we have seen where it will add more value to the organizations and to the projects. So we have one applicant for your consideration. It is the Hilton Head Bluffton Arts and Seafood Festival. They are requesting $80,000.
You want to do it right now? Okay. Larry is recusing himself, but he can still sit here. You just can't ask questions and no talking. Okay. Thank you. Sorry.
That's okay. The festival is scheduled to be held October 15th through the 23rd, and they are requesting support for advertising, fire and security services, and tourist transportation. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have, and we also have some ATAC members as well.
Any questions? We have one application this quarter. Any questions for anyone that's joining us tonight? Anyone over here? Okay. There's a request. Oops, I missed it. So on the Historic Arts and Seafood Festival, amount requested $80,000, amount recommended is $80,000. Is there a motion to accept that recommendation?
And I'm sorry, Mayor, I don't mean to interrupt, but the ATAC did recommend the $80,000 with also the availability of extra funds for any costs incurred that are attributable to tourists. So it could potentially increase.
Would they have to come back? No. Can that happen? I see the motion, but that's really open-ended.
Yes, I was going to say, I saw it in the report, and
I think because there's a formulaic breakdown that was approved by ATAC, in my opinion, y'all have the discretion to do that, but you also have the discretion to limit that or just remove that, any additional expense language, and force them to come back if necessary.
I got a question.
Yeah.
What was the amount that was awarded last year?
$70,000.
70?
Yes, sir.
My recommendation is that they come back.
Okay.
The 80 is spent, they come back.
I mean, I guess I'd go to someone, it's like a lean and mean machine. And everyone knows costs now from 6 months ago or a year ago that they've gone up. And I would have rather them ask for more and you pay on receipt than leave that open. I just think it opens us up.
It is reimbursement based. So we do request and we require the receipts to come in so that we can see what the expenses were. There was a comment by the organization that the security expenses have increased tremendously since it was submitted. So that's where the conversation came into play.
We understand everything's inflated in price these days, but still, I think it doesn't put us in a pickle or set a precedent, so we need to make sure that we follow a process that they come back and show that they do deserve
Okay.
it.
Can you call a special meeting, or is there a state requirement that it only can be quarterly?
It's quarterly, but we can absolutely have them come in. So our next, so it's the end of this quarter for applications, and then December 31st would be the next quarter deadline, which would be after the festival. So they could come in with their total expenses and their budget, and then request for more funds at that time if that's.
Well, it's going like in between the two. Can you not call an emergency meeting in, like I know they had to go June, so it ended June, and you have no idea between June and October. And I want to support this event. It's awesome. But you don't want to set a precedent for the next person that says, but y'all did it for them, and then we're in a bunch of trouble. So
Mayor, I have a question too.
Yeah, could you not do it October, have a special meeting if ATAC would want to meet just to recap an event that the town supports too?
Right.
So I think you can do a little extra for a town-sponsored event.
Sure. There is also a scheduled ATAC meeting in November as well. So I don't know
I'll just say, would it be easier if we did something similar to what we did a few months ago with our vendor contracts, in terms of if it goes over a certain threshold, that's when we would ask for it to be included, or for approval, or for it to come back to us? Because in a sense, if they're approved for 80,000, are we saying that we want them to have a special meeting if they go $500 over that budget? You know, for me, it seems like something like that seems like it'd almost be counterproductive to call, you know, the commission to come back for something like that. And I'm interested to see if the rest of council would be open. If it goes over a certain threshold, would that then be what would warrant us to say we would want them to come back? Or is everyone just like, anything over the approved budget needs to be something that comes right back to us?
Personally, I don't know why we need to change the system the way it's been operating all this time. It's a matter of just what you're asking for in the beginning, you know, put it in the number. And again, if she'd have went $5,000 higher, she's got to turn in the receipts, and it may not hit that number anyway. So, you know, I don't think we need to leave it open-ended. I think we can just pass what's here, take that piece out, and move on, and everybody learns from it and does it different next time with the original submittal.
But is the way that it is now, if they do exceed that, and they're saying the security, for instance, is higher, they wouldn't be allotted any additional funding over that 80 if we don't, correct? Is that the way that it would be?
No, they could come back. They can come back.
Yeah.
And this is so different. This is state law, this is state rules, and we have to dot our I's and cross our T's a lot closer than other things. And I just don't want to mess it up. And, you know, I guess I go back, they've been doing this for so many years. Why not put in that buffer? Why not put in that buffer and Sam has to come up here. Come up here, you got to get to the microphone.
Just for clarification.
Thank you, guys. The way the motion was made was that for the reimbursable costs from the ATAX funds that were attributed to the tourism portion of what they did. So they just can't come in and give you here's an additional $20,000. It has to be attributed to the fixed costs that are eligible for ATAX funds, and as a percentage that it related to the tourism draw. So the two things that we never know going in, and of course our applicants don't, they're working on their budgets way before they present to us. And all those things are apt to change as we get closer to their event, from advertising, which is a fixed cost, but as far as the facilities, security, trash, the stage, the stuff that they're doing, those are apt to change. And so the way the motion was presented was as it's attributable to the ATAX per the percentage of tourism. So the deal would be that they could actually increase their thing on the attributable things that actually happen. So they certainly can't go above the 50% of the request of what they were, but it's only as a percentage of the additional costs that would be incurred from the planning stages 4 or 5 months ago to the actual event in October. So there's a big time frame in between there that they're putting budgets together to present to ATAX committee to be able to actually then contract that stuff out. So what we try to do with a big event is to give them the ability to know that the funding could be available if they need it, but certainly they have to present the receipts. And if it's $10,000 and they got 40% of tourism, they get $4,000 of that $10,000 they incurred. Does that clarify what we were trying to do?
Yeah, I understand. I appreciate the out of the box on it. I think it's great. But if it's an October event, by the time they get their receipts, it'll be a November meeting anyway. So that way we keep everyone.
It's either, however we wanted to do it, but what we were trying to do is kind of let the festival know that they had the ability to ask for additional, because it as we all know, post-COVID, the world's changed. The cost that used to be kind of a fixed rate for them have, from everything from security to staging to trash pickup. That's all been such a change thing, and we just wanted to make sure that our people who are requesting ATAX money know that there's some time if they know. I would rather see them come in after the fact than before the fact, trying to make their budgets work within that stuff. So that was the rationale for us saying we're good for your 80, but if you incur, it happened a few years ago. We kind of did the same thing where they.
But it came back to us.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think just the month, I don't know if that will change your mind, but I think it does keep the precedent. No, Sam, we like you here. You're the historian of that group, so.
Yeah, and it's kind of unanimous that we want you to come back.
Yeah.
I mean, up here at this table. I mean.
And I think y'all want them to come back, and we all want that to be a successful event.
I think my last comment, I think the larger context here was just knowing, or those who will put on events, just having the assurance that that option is there, and it's not something that we will scoff on, because they do submit their project budgets months in advance before the actual event, and things do change. Just as, someone's done it, things will change. And so we definitely want to encourage those who will continue to put events on to do that, and not, feel that they're going to have to eat costs for their event just because something has gone up, as long as they are, abiding by those stipulations.
And I think that could be good coming strategic plan when we talk about ATAX. Maybe your group, we need a workshop, we've got money. We have people out there that are intimidated to come and ask for money from anybody, not just Bluffton. And we've got to reach out to them so we can put some of this money back into this community. So maybe take her comments and how can we work it around state law. And if it's something we can change as a process. I'm learning that from my council people up here, that it's the same for everybody and everyone knows all of this, that we want to put it in their hands. I personally.
That's easy. Let's move on.
Okay, so going back to my motion I had, there's a recommendation of 80. Is there a motion in support of 80,000 for the Historic Bluffton Arts and Seafood Festival as presented in the staff report? I'm not looking at you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Were you going to say something?
No.
Any discussion? Mr. Toomer has recused himself, so it'll be a 4 vote. All in favor, state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That's 4 with 1 recusal. Thank you. And I know we'll see them in December because spend money to make money, I think. Okay, sorry, I just lost my agenda. Next is item number 2 under formal agenda items, consideration of an IGA intergovernmental agreement between Beaufort County, Jasper County, Town of Bluffton, Town of Hilton Head, City of Hardyville, Town of Port Royal, City of Beaufort, and Town of Yemassee to create a regional housing trust fund. Mr. Spees, you are up.
Mayor, Council, the presentation's not long. I think we've talked about this for years. And I know the mayor and Councilman Hamilton are on SoLoco, and Councilman Wood was actually involved with the research that went into the report from that was created by Asakur Robinson. I think that's how you pronounce it, Asakur. That was presented to SoLoco. So I just wanted to answer any questions, provide an update, and I'm going to kind of go through a little bit of the background in detail, as well as go through a little bit of the IGA, some of the high points, and answer any questions that council may have. So the SoLoco was asked by participating entities to appoint representatives to complete a regional housing needs assessment. This was done and presented to SoLoco in August of 2021. Since that time, we've kind of been having discussion on how we can move forward with getting the Regional Housing Trust Fund set up and in place. The report outlined the need for the affordable housing, and it recommended the regional approach to addressing the affordable housing, and recommended creating a Regional Housing Trust Fund that's allowed under state law. The members also worked to draft an intergovernmental agreement. The committee discussed it. The town managers and administrators got together, put a proposal together. Town attorneys, for the most part, reviewed, as well as the county attorneys. And what was recommended to Soloco was presented in July of 26th of this year. The potential partners that were included in that were outside of Bluffton, were Beaufort and Jasper County, City of Beaufort, Hardyville, Hilton Head Island, Port Royal, and Yemassee. To date, Yemassee and Hardyville have adopted. I know Beaufort has it on their agenda. They're meeting tonight as well to review, and Hilton Head Island has it next month. Not sure about Jasper and Port Royal yet, but I've reached out trying to find out where they were at in the process. The anticipation would be that everybody review and discuss it by the end of this month so that we can come back to the October Soloco meeting and figure out where we are at that time. So to kind of go through the IGA and hit some of the high points, it does define affordable housing as not exceeding 100% of the area median income. It also outlines that priority be given to projects that are at or below 60% of area median income. It also aligns the priorities of the Regional Housing Trust Fund with those that were presented in the Asakura Robinson 2021 report. It also asks each participating member to appoint one person to the Regional Housing Trust Fund Oversight Board. And each person that is appointed, each participating jurisdiction will have one vote as part of that board. So regardless of the funding amounts, each jurisdiction counts as one vote. So that's one thing to consider, is that council would be responsible for appointing a member to this oversight board. This oversight board would outline the goals and objectives for the Regional Housing Trust Fund. It would also draft and adopt bylaws, and it would also be the one that would vote to allocate funds to projects and advocate for affordable housing. I know during public comment, one of the comments was about trying to get funding faster. One of the purposes of the board is to try to find grants and opportunities that we can get, whether it's home funds, CDBG dollars, to try to multiply the public dollars that we would be putting into the Regional Housing Trust Fund. The board would also determine how to set up the Regional Housing Trust Fund for operations. This could be whether we're going to contract a 501c3, contract a group to run it, whether we're going to create a 501c3, whether we're going to hire employees. They would have that authority to decide how the organization would be run. So the next steps, if council is good with moving forward, would be for all the partners to review and approve, like I said, by the end of this month. Talked a little bit about Hardyville and Yemassee and where everybody else was in the approval process. Once it is finalized, once it's approved, it would not be finalized until all parties approve it. So even if council approves tonight, if we have one of the 8 partners decides not to approve it, we would have to go back and revisit what the language, how that might affect funding, how it would affect the board makeup. So we would have to go back and revisit that as part of the Soloco and bring it back to all the entities to revisit again at that point in time. I will say that at the Soloco meeting, when it was time to make recommendation on whether to move forward, it was unanimous amongst everybody that was there to send it to all the jurisdictions to review and make a recommendation for moving forward. The next step after that is council would need to appoint a representative to the oversight board, and then we would provide the initial funding and move forward with that. I don't have the funding outlined in here, but you have a copy of the IGA that was in your packet, so you can see that the funding is actually outlined for year 1 to be 3% of the American Rescue Plan funds that each jurisdiction received. And then following that, it will be based on a percent of total population. And it is set at $500,000 per year with a 3% annual increase per year. At that point in time, it'll be based on population. So it will adjust each year based on the population number. So as we're growing, we may see our amount go up versus, say, Hilton Head or Beaufort. We may see our proportion increase. Same as Hardyville, as they continue to grow, you'll see their portion increase. So inside of the packet, you had a copy of the report, you had a copy of the IGA, so I'll be more than glad to answer any questions you may have on how we got where we are, what the IGA may represent. and what the process may look like going forward. So at that, I'll turn it over to council.
Questions?
Just, following this process, and it's been long, like you pointed out, obviously I support it. The original concept was based on Greenville, which leveraged their money to $20 million, I think it was said when we first started down this path. Maybe at one of our meetings in the near future, Community Works, they've got all the tools in the box to try to leverage. They know where to go, but I've never heard them throw a number out there that they, within the next 5 years, for example, that they might potentially come up with a number. It'd be nice at some point to have an idea. In other words, we're making commitments as jurisdictions, so maybe the next time we see them, we ask them,
Well, the one thing
give us an example.
Sorry, go ahead.
That's it.
I was just going to say, the one thing I would point out is the only thing that Community Works with this agreement is that they would serve as the fiscal agent, which means they would be the CDF, the Community Development Finance Institution, to hold the funds. Until we get the board in place and they decide who's going to run the day-to-day, we can't really ask them to give us that information. That would probably be part of the oversight board's due diligence to say, okay, how can you help us take the commitment from these jurisdictions and go out, and whether it's 50-50 match from CDBG or 50-50 match from home, or leveraging from nonprofits or Low Country Foundation or any of those kind of things where they may be able to match those dollars, that could be part of that review process for that board. But until we get to that point, it's hard to ask somebody to make a commitment right now.
Anything else, Stephen?
Yeah, I just have a question. I commend everyone who's worked, hard on this to try to make this something that local municipalities will unite around. But I do have a concern, Stephen, in terms of, I see that the funds are allotted from each community for a 10-year time period. I guess it's my concern, and you could, address the concern. But if the funding is going for 10 years, I'm concerned in between that time period, will construction or will the completion of any of these projects not commence until that 10-year time period? Are we waiting?
No, ma'am. Once the funding's given, and once the bylaws and programs are set in place, and I don't have a copy of the IGA in front of me, but I think it outlines the board to have all that done within 6 months. Once they're created, they're to put together the bylaws and create the guidelines and what they're going to applications process and all that, and decide who they're going to bring in to run it. But once the funding's in place, the goal would be and the bylaws are set and the programmatic items are set, then people can start seeking the funds. The goal is not for it's not set up to have to wait the whole 10 years before you can ask for anything. Once the funding is in there, we can go after it.
And then 6 months.
The 10 years.
6 months.
The 10 years is just the commitment from each entity.
Correct. Pretty much what the
in or out.
Correct. What the report said is you want to have a minimum of 10-year commitment, because by the time you get the bylaw set up, you start moving everything forward. If you're not committing to at least 10 years worth of funding in a 10-year process, then you're really not seeking long-term to address the issue. So by having this be 10 years, we at least guarantee there will be funding for 10 years that can be leveraged, and we guarantee that there'll be a regional housing trust fund, as much as you can guarantee when you have 8 municipalities and counties working together, that we would have a regional housing trust fund funding in place to be able to do this regionally for those 10 years.
Thank you for that. And I know Councilman Wood mentioned that Greenville started something similar with this. I also follow the city of Atlanta that started something similar as well with the $50 million project, but it was a collaboration between the local government as well as private ones. Is there something similar being considered here, or is this strictly just for the local government?
So this IGA would just be strictly for the local governments. That's not to say that there couldn't be foundations or banks or private parties, contractors, developers that may be interested in making sure that this is addressed. But right now, this is really just the seed funding. and the base group to get everything going, to set the program in place, create the bylaws, create the rules, and get everything moving forward.
Thank you.
How do you want because I know we have to wait till everyone passes it, so it gives you about a month, but do we look at our application pool for the person? Are there requirements? Can they be elected, not elected? How is that what, we got to do something before we get our board together. So what is the group's thought of who each will nominate, or is it wide open?
It is, I believe if you go into the IGA, do you have it?
I got it right here if you tell me.
I think it recommends that as somebody that has experience with affordable housing or housing or something similar to be able to do that. I don't think we outlawed any kind of elected officials.
Mr. Steve, if I may, section 4.IGA, section 4A, it says no elected officials may serve, and each municipality appoints a representative on their behalf, and then there's an at-large as well as the director.
So what is the process? Are you going to come to us? Are we all going to throw out a name or so, and you're going to look at them, and we're going to discuss who we nominate or appoint?
Yes,
Is that
ma'am.
how you want to do it? I was just trying to think process.
That would be a question we could have, a discussion we could have with council is, do you want to treat it like any other board where Kim would advertise it out and we would take applications, review them, or would it, with this being kind of brand new and a unique commitment and partnership, if council feels it's better to find somebody that is, y'all reach out and find somebody to represent the community and then make that recommendation. But we do have on the next council meeting planned for boards and commissions for a couple of, I think DRCI and a couple other things. So we could, if everything gets in place, we could look at having that at the October meeting as part of that as well.
And that person, it doesn't have, I know Kim gets crazy over terms, but it doesn't show a term. And I think that's a discussion. Maybe that's what they do with the bylaws.
2 years.
So 2 years. All of them 2 years? Are we going to stagger? So every 2 years it could be a new board?
They would have to be staggered.
It has to be staggered.
That's where they would need to create their bylaws.
Bad bylaws, okay.
So what would happen, Stephen, if we appoint a person and that person doesn't vote the way the majority of council wants them to vote? How do we?
Any appointee to any board serves at the pleasure of council.
So they can leave as fast as they got here?
Yes, sir. And though, one thing I would say to kind of talk about some of the questions that are coming up, especially about getting into the details and the future operation of it, is when the discussion of the IGA took place, you're dealing with 8 local governments, 2 counties, 6 municipalities. Trying to get to something that we can all agree to is very taxing. If we got into the point where we started trying to muddle through what it was going to look like on the bylaws and what it was going to look like for terms and who's going to serve this term first, who's going to pull the short straw first, we probably would have taken a lot longer to get this to council where we are. So the discussion was, let's get something just to get everybody together. Let's figure out what who all is going to be involved, what the funding is going to look like, what the commitment's going to look like, how long it's going to be, and make sure what we're going to do to appoint the board and who's going to handle the finances. So those were the
Put us back in our lane.
So those were the
Instead of just talking.
right. So those were the key. Let's get it moving forward. Let's get our board in place, and then they'll be the ones to figure out how it's going to all be set up, and that's why it's key for. Like I said, it's kind of a unique appointment for council. So it may be something that we want to discuss further. Y'all may want to come together and find somebody who you think may serve the community especially well as our first appointee to set all this up.
We'll all discuss it. Let's keep Stephen in the loop. Any other questions? I just have one, and I don't know if it's right or wrong, but on the, and you don't have it, but for the people here and streaming, you can go to our town site and pull up every single document on any of the agenda items, not just Stephen's presentation. So attachment A, I always thought by population our number was going to be far higher than the 3% of ARPA, and it has year 2 actually less than what our 3% ARPA, and I don't know if that's a typo or not. So can we double check that attachment?
So those are estimates, and they're based on 2020 population. And just since 2020, our population numbers have gone up 3,400.
Okay.
So they'll be adjusted annually, but we can double check those, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, it just seems like Bluffton and Hilton Head are usually always on about the same number, and it's less than ARPA. And I thought that attachment B a long time ago, when they tried to switch it to population, our number was almost double. So
It was more than
so
double.
just a check. Let's just double check that. Okay. Anything else? Is there a motion to approve the intergovernmental agreement between Beaufort County, Jasper County, Town of Bluffton, Town of Hilton Head Island, City of Hardyville, Town of Port Royal, City of Beaufort, and Town of Yemassee to create a regional housing trust fund?
So moved.
Your second.
Second.
Any discussion? One thing, there was a speaker at public comment that said, why can't we get more faster? I think through your presentation, it shows this is just a tool that can be maybe bonded, private money, so that the 10 million or whatever that dollar amount over 10 years could be double.
And they can be used to go out and be matches for grants and other programs that we can apply for as part of the program.
On top of the second tool we have, which is 20% of any PUD outside of our development agreements, which ruled 92% of our town required affordable housing. That's a tool. And also our project, Hilton Head's doing a project. People are doing projects. So we have multiple tools in a toolbox. This is not the end all to end affordable housing issues.
And to piggyback and not to belabor or take it any longer, is this will be available to us for any of our future affordable housing projects to apply and get funding to help us.
So it's exciting. You know? Can't believe 8 different governments with 5 to 7 to 11 people. Hopefully, knock on wood, we'll all agree. Okay, any other discussion? All in favor, state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That's unanimous.
Thank you.
Good job, Stephen, on this. And the Affordable Housing Committee and SoLoco and everyone in the room that had something to do with this. Next, we have second and final reading, the ordinance amending the Town of Bluffton Code of Ordinances, Chapter 4, Animals. Heather, we'll make this simple. Were there any changes from last month?
No, there were no changes.
Okay, so do y'all have any questions from the last reading on this ordinance?
No.
Okay, if not, is there a motion to approve second and final reading of the ordinance amending the Town of Bluffton Code of Ordinances, Chapter 4, Animals?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous.
Heather, I think that was faster than anything Kevin's ever done.
I think let's see if Kevin can match you with the next one.
Kevin, you can do it.
Kevin?
No changes.
No changes. Next is item 4 under number 9, formal agenda items. Consideration of proposed amendments to the Town of Bluffton's Municipal Code of Ordinances, Chapter 23, Unified Development Ordinance, Article 5, Design Standards 5.15.5 to increase additional building type footprint and to provide a consistent height for river house building types. This is first reading. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
As you remember, we brought this in front of you for a workshop. You guys were nodding your heads and giving us the right direction to move forward with this. We are looking to make some amendments to the building height that's inconsistent in one of the code sections, which I'll bring up here in a second, as well as allowing for a larger building footprint specifically for the riverfront district. Just a reminder, it's one of the 5 districts in Old Town. There's approximately 32 lots. 23 of them have single family or underway. 21 of those 21 of those homes were constructed prior to 2011. And then the form-based code, which is the building types, applies to in this district. There's different building types that are allowed. This is specific for the riverfront edge, which is the carriage house, cottage, vernacular, center hall, river house, civic building, and then the additional building type. Just some examples of various homes that are in the riverfront district. And as you'll see, the only house in this picture, this is the only river house building type that we took a picture of, just to see that there is multiple types of homes that are in that district. So the current text that we have in place that deals with what's allowed for the footprint and square footage size. about a year ago, we made changes to the code. I've highlighted that information where it says that the maximum building footprint and building size for an additional building type shall not exceed the largest footprint and building size permitted in the other building types for that same zoning district. What that did was that it kind of closed a little bit of a loophole for that additional building type to make sure that no one was building a larger building than the largest building that's allowed in that district. So what we've done is we've come up with a proposed change, and what we've done is the text in red, where it just says, except as otherwise provided in this section, the maximum building footprint and building size for the additional building type shall not exceed the largest footprint. And then it goes on to say, within the Riverfront Edge Historic District, the UDO administrator may approve a building footprint up to 5,500 square feet, provided that the footprint and characteristics of the building type are permitted in that district and in that building size range. So what this means is that this gives the UDO administrator, that would be Heather, the ability to allow someone to move forward with a building up to 5,500 square foot footprint. So I'm going to get a little bit more information here in just a second. But what that does is it gives us an opportunity to look at a project first to determine if it's even appropriate for the Riverfront District. If they come in with something that is just grossly inappropriate, we can then say, no, that's not meeting that intent and that you need to try again. So that was the one part. The second part is dealing with the current text for the inconsistencies of the height. As you remember, we noticed that in one section we have the height for the river house at 1.5, and that is here. And then in the other section, it is at 2 and 2.5 stories. So what we're looking to do is to replace that 1.5 with 1.5 to 2 stories. And same in that other section, to not have it as the 2.2 to 2.5 to the 1.5 to 2 stories. This is consistent with the review criteria. The Historic Preservation Commission did hear this at their August meeting. They actually went through this, and they considered actually only allowing 3,500 square feet. Unfortunately, from a staff level, we're concerned that you're restricting it further than what we're looking at. We do have homes that are already over that allotment, and we're making them non-conforming. That's why we had the 5,500 square foot allotment go forward. It went to the Planning Commission. They voted as submitted, 5-0. You have the authority tonight to approve this application, approve with any recommendations, or excuse me, any conditions, or to deny the request. This is the first reading. This will be back to you with a second final reading and public hearing next month. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I have a proposed motion for you.
Questions over here?
Questions?
Just as a memory, I know when we workshopped this, you brought up and it's just riverfront, and my mind doesn't take me really to a vacant lot, but a lot of older homes that were built way before probably everyone in this room, maybe not Fred and Larry and Bridget, lived here. And so they're wanting to make additions, and they can't go up because the house is so much older. So
yes, ma'am.
I just, a lot of new people in the room, I wanted them to understand the kind of more compassion for an older population that now maybe needs to make some additions.
Correct.
So I do like the idea of not making things non-conforming, even though that number's scary, but you still can look at the footprint to make sure it sits within the setbacks.
Yes.
And all of that.
Yes, ma'am. And you have to remember that the majority of those lots are over an acre. So to restrict the smaller houses, it does have some challenges.
Okay. Well, if no questions, is there a motion to approve the amendments to the Town of Bluffton Code of Ordinances, Chapter 23, Article 5, to increase the footprint for additional building type in the Riverfront Edge HD zoning district and to provide a consistent height for the river house building type as recommended by the Planning Commission?
So moved.
What do y'all want to second it?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And we'll see it at second reading next month.
Thank you, ma'am.
Next is approval to authorize as number 5, a construction contract to JS Construction Services for site development of parking area at the Oyster Factory Park. Fiscal impact, $550,351.60. These are items that we're bringing for transparency to know how we're spending money in the budget. And Kim?
And I'm going to recuse myself from this also.
Okay, and Larry Toomer is going to recuse himself from item number 5. So you have 2 pieces of paper right now to sign.
We'll just,
Okay, Kim.
we'll just reopen
We're coming right up with that.
Sorry about that.
No worries. Thank you, Johnny. I appreciate it. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Appreciate your time this evening. I have several items that I'll be bringing forward for your consideration. And as you said, for more transparency, so everyone understands what our budgetary impacts are for projects. This is why we're here this evening. What I have before you this evening is a request to authorize a construction contract to JS Construction Services for site development of the Oyster Factory Park parking lot with a fiscal impact potentially of $550,000, $351.60 within budget. Just to provide a little bit of history and background for those folks who may not be familiar with the Oyster Factory Park, the master plan was developed back in 2015 and is in partnership with Beaufort County, the Open Land Trust, and is to provide for recreational and scenic and historic uses of the property. That historic plan of 2015 was used to update a master plan amendment in 2021, and this was based upon council input and changed a little bit of the design and layout. Specifically, I want to call your attention to, because it's a point of question for this evening. If I can get it to work. There we go. Is the parking area for construction. Based on some of that feedback from 2021, and originally that was that parking area to the north, which is currently pedestrian and passenger parking, was supposed to be more trailer parking, was to make that not trailer but put passenger there. Moving the playground from behind the pavilion, making it more event friendly for service and cookout area, ensuring that we're staying in agreement with the Beaufort County Rural and Critical Land Preservation agreements that we have in place, upgrading the cookout area, and providing access points for all the loading and unloading for events that we do have in that facility. So specifically, when we talk about this particular phase of improvements to the Oyster Factory, what we're talking about is the area that is between the existing parking lot that faces Bridge Street. So this would be 4th Street, you got it, and we've got the pavilion down here. So this has been underbrushed and opened up. Right now it's very ad hoc, a lot of golf cart parking in there, and this will meet improvements to give more pedestrian as well as golf cart parking. So the scope of this particular contract will provide additional 49 car spots, 23 golf cart spots. We will be pervious. We will be in compliance with SOLOCO standards for stormwater and the 100-year storm event. We will also have the conduit for lighting and irrigation, and the scope includes landscape construction after civil construction, and ensuring that we have pedestrian safety with connectivity from Bridge Street to the pavilion. After putting out an IFB, we had 2 respondents that were responsible. The lowest responsive bidder was JS Construction Services for $550,000, $351.60. So with that, staff's recommendation is to award the contract to JS with a 10% construction contingency, which is within budget for fiscal year 2023. And we would move forward with kicking that contract off and a notice to proceed if approved this evening. Great. So are there any questions?
Any questions? Okay. If there are no questions, is there a motion to authorize the town manager to enter into the agreement with JS Construction covering the site development of the parking area at the Oyster Factory Park? The agreement includes a commitment from the town of Bluffton for $550,351.60 and a 10% contingency to be paid from the appropriate town fund.
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? I'm guessing we'll do all of this around, we like getting projects done, but October's good because voting's kind of...
Right, but not impacting Arts and Seafood Festival.
Okay, and Arts and Seafood Festival.
Yes,
right.
Definitely.
Okay, any other...
All notice will be given.
Yes, any other discussion? All in favor, state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So that's 4 and 1 recusal. Next, you're still up. A couple of things. Construction to number 6, approved to authorize a landscape architectural contract to Wooden Partners for the landscape architectural engineering and architectural services for the new Riverside Barn Park Playground. Fiscal impact 164,400.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And we'll move right into that. Again, public sake and background, this is the 37-acre New Riverside Barn property out on 170 near the traffic circle, which was purchased in 2018. We have a 2,700 square foot barn, lots of open green space out there, and the purpose of that park is to create community open space for civic gatherings and park use in one of the fastest growing areas of our community out in the New Riverside area. What we're specifically talking about awarding is a contract to Wooden Partners as the prime, but they have a design team that is comprised also of Thomas & Hutton, Court Atkins, as well as several various engineering groups such as Cranston Engineering. For what we're about to show you within the scope, there were a number of public input opportunities between the Arts and Seafood Festival and also having an on-site event where the dotmocracy came into play. That's where you stick your dots up there. 270 surveys obtained, and what all of that boiled down to were there were 5 things that people really wanted to see in the plans out there. Barn improvements and restrooms, multi-purpose trail, having the open flex space, making sure that we were working with nature in that area, and providing ample picnic shelters. The conceptual master plan was presented to council in 2020. We've already gone out to phase 1 engineering for the site design and also the construction, so that's out right now. We, in fact, plan to bring that to you in October for award. So we've also have under Court Atkins the design services for specifically the barn. What we're looking to approve now with the Wooden Partners contract and design team is for the playground area and pavilions, and this is for the design. The conceptual master plan, let me put my glasses on so I can see that far. Conceptual master plan, specifically what we're talking about is working in this area, right? The barn is here, the playground area is in the center. Here's the existing fire station. Just to give you some ideas of what's underway, and obviously this will be coming back at various points for more input. We have a meeting coming up with Court Atkins later in a week to talk a little bit more about what some of their ideas are for the barn renovations and reuse. Right now we have a conceptual plan from Wooden Partners on the playground. The idea for this playground is for it to be a destination with iconic pieces that serves a multitude of age groups, and it can be featured through different structures, such as the early age youth owl, who it serves 2 to 5, climbing structures 5 to 12, again making sure we're getting all of those age ranges and activities out there. Larger climbing options, these will look more like nests to fit with what's out there. And also more climbing around and tactile activities. And then we got the little guys too, right? Everybody loves to ride a bug. So our recommendation, who doesn't like to ride a bug?
Maybe an adult playground.
Yeah, you know what, I've been
I'll go
there.
out there.
I love those little things. So our staff recommendation is for council to authorize the town manager to execute this design services contract with Wooden Partner, specifically for the landscape, architectural, engineering, and architectural services for the new Riverside Barn Park Playground area.
Questions? I guess when, it's a big area, and we have people here tonight that live really close that can ride their bike. I thought they could drive a golf cart. I didn't know county council put that down. But when do we see that we are opening this for people to actually use? I mean, we've owned it for so many years. When can it just be open to readable?
Well, I mean, as an unimproved space, people can I think, get out there now, can they not?
Thought
It's
we
not
had
as
to
if-
mow it, and I
Well,
thought,
I would say once phase one is done, the parking will be in place, and it will make it easier for, it can be an unprogrammed green space. The playground, the barn, at the TIF funding and bonding that council did, we're trying to push to get the entire project complete within about 24 months.
I personally think it's frustrating if I live there not to be able to go and sit and put a cloth, like I just saw it right Family Park today. And I guess I asked in the past, can we not mow it? Can we not open it up? The fire station's here. So maybe the hope is for all residents, when the parking's in, gates will be open and we'll have some kind of.
After that phase one site work is done, there will be formalized parking spaces. Like right now, I think people are riding their bikes out there using it, but it's not easily accessible to drive to.
And phase one.
I'm sorry?
What is the timeline on phase one parking?
That contract will be coming to you in October.
So we haven't agreed.
Right, and the reason we would not want them out there during phase one is that is infrastructure. That's when they're going to be grading and putting pipes in the ground, and there'll be, so once that's done, it'll be far easier for people to access and park and enjoy.
Any other questions? If not, is there a motion to authorize the town manager to execute a design services contract with Wood & Partners for landscape, architectural engineering, and architectural services for the new Riverside Barn Playground area, fiscal impact $164,400? Is there a second? Any discussion? All in favor, say by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Great job, Kim. That's exciting. Get that underway. Kevin? Consideration of an approval of an amendment to the master plan for Cypress Ridge within the Jones Estate Plan Unit Development for additional roads and service lanes to the commercial village area of Mill Creek for future development of 29 attached residential units on approximately 1,412 acres located on South Carolina Highway 170. And I saw you taking notes when public comment was taking place, so if we can address some of those
Yes, ma'am.
comments as well, it'd be great.
Sure thing.
I took notes too. So.
Excellent. So as you stated, we're here for a master plan amendment for the Cypress Ridge master plan, specifically for the Mill Creek area. That's the D.R. Horton portion, or the northern portion of this property. The applicant, Mike Hughes with Thomas & Hutton, is in the audience and able to answer any questions you may have, so we can have him up here to take care of that information. They are requesting to revise the street network, and that's the main reason we're here, because of the, once you start changing the street network, that's where you have to come back in front of the Planning Commission and Town Council for an amendment to this master plan. So they are looking to change the commercial designation that's on the plan, highlighted in red. As you can see on this top image, it doesn't help that the pointer is red as well. But to what would be proposed at the lower image here, where you'd have 29 townhome lots that would be a rear-loaded product, meaning that the driveways would not be out on the front of the road, but would be behind the road, or excuse me, behind the lots. And then there's still the commercial property that's right here currently that is under permitting for a daycare center. So that is moving forward. And that was one of the comments that came up. Someone said that there's a daycare that's going across the street. They were referring to this piece of property right here.
Is that is part of this?
Yes, sir. Yes, sure is. Yep. So here's just an aerial map. If you can see some of the highlighted property that we're referring to. Also, there's this small portion down here. This is Holston Landing. This is where D.R. Horton's office is currently located, and they have a boat and RV storage area. That designation would be removed from this portion of property as well. Well, then it turns into open space. Yes, ma'am. Okay. All right. Planning Commission, at their July 27th meeting, recommended to deny the request based off of the review criteria outlined in the staff report. And I'll go to those review criteria here in just a minute. This is the existing master plan, as we were talking about, where a lot of that commercial development was designated for the areas here. Previously, there was commercial designation along the frontage in front of Four Seasons. So this is the K. Hovanian portion of it. This is the D.R. Horton portion of it. Any questions about this so far?
We're not dealing with the K. Hovnanian.
No, ma'am.
Just showing us, okay.
Yes, just showing you the overall, this is the overall master plan, and it's just this portion up here that's being affected. So you can see now that commercial designation has been removed, and then the applicant is proposing the townhomes at that location. This might be a little bit easier to see right here.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I thought I was leaning in on it.
so one of the concerns is that in the concept plan in the Jones estate, you were allowed a conversion. So you could convert commercial acreage of 1 commercial acreage to 4 residential dwelling units. So that has been happening throughout the development. That is a by right use that they're allowed to do. D.R. Horton had 7.25 acres of commercial development, and they converted that to 29 residential units. That happened a couple of months ago to maybe about a year ago. Again, by right, they were allowed to do that with no problems. It's just now we're at the point where their proposed development, which is this development right here, it triggered for them to come back in for this master plan amendment because they are changing the road network. So this is just a highlighted, just a little bit easier for you to see. Again, here's 170 at the bottom. This is the main entrance. That daycare we're referring to is going to go here. This is there's a median through here, so any access to this portion of it would be a right in and right out only. And you can see that these products are rear loaded, so there's an alley that comes off the side here. This is all alley fed, and then they would be off of, I believe this is Wagon Wheel.
Oak Barrel.
Oak Barrel, thank you. That's Wagon Wheel. Okay. This is a conceptual design that was provided to us from the applicant to show that if there was commercial development, that this would be somewhat of a programming of it. So, back when this master plan was initially thought through, this would have been something that would have come forward for the commercial development. Again, this has not been reviewed by staff. This is a conceptual. This is only to show you what it would look like if there was commercial development right there. So the review criteria, I've highlighted 4 of them. These are the 4 criteria that staff pointed out that were not consistent in meeting these criteria, and these are the criteria that the Planning Commission used in basing their decision. The first one was the promotion and consistency of the land use goals of the comprehensive plan, and staff felt that it did not meet that element of the balance of land uses. When this plan initially came through, it was touted as someone even, I think they even said, live, work, play, and the work portion is now being removed from that portion of the plan. Felt that it was inconsistent with the zoning and development standards for the Jones estate, that it was designed as a mixed-use development, which included residential commercial uses, but is no longer meeting that requirement. Consistency with the provisions of the development agreement, felt that it was not consistent, that while the conversion of that commercial density was allowed, that this conversion of land use further limits the commercial opportunities in the Cypress Ridge PUD master plan, which was characterized as a commercial village that represents the heart of the community. And then the ability to serve, to adequately serve sewer, roads, police, and fire. We felt that it did not. Not to get too into the weeds, but the traffic impact analysis that was provided in 2017, and this image might help a little bit, that the northern and the southern portion do connect in the back. And part of that was residents that live in Four Seasons have the ability to travel through Mill Creek in order to access the commercial that's up at the front here. And when they do their calculations, they collect that additional trips So that way the individuals are not driving out onto the main road and clogging 170, but they're using the internal network in order to get over to this commercial development. So that alleviates some of that traffic off of the main road. Well, when all of this commercial now disappears, all of that traffic that they counted for that had the ability to go here, they're not going here. They're going out onto the main road, which is now clogging that road. And what staff was saying is that you need to update that plan to show us what is that true impact of now all of this traffic, exiting on these 2 points, as opposed to having the ability of exiting and just going to this commercial and then going back through without getting onto 170. So we had concerns about that as well. So your actions this evening are to approve the application as submitted, approve the application with any conditions, or to deny the application by the applicant. Just as a follow-up, this did go through the Development Review Committee, Planning Commission, and then Town Council for the master plan approval, which is tonight. I feel like that I have some slides that were... Yes. I do have some other slides here. These were the other review criteria if you had any questions.
Right.
Yeah. So with that, I'm able to answer any questions. The applicant is here and can speak to it as well.
Before I go, if we can just clarify, you and I talked about it.
Yes, ma'am.
Reading through this packet, it actually said the mayor, demanded or whatever.
I pulled that
was
up.
not the mayor in 2000. This was the mayor from before me.
Yes.
And I just don't want that out, that it looks like someone on this council sits in a back room and says what.
So during yes, ma'am, during the development review process, one of the comments that we had provided was that the mayor, at the time of approval of the master plan, which was 2005, the original master plan, was adamant that the commercial village was a component of the development. It was intended to be a node of development that had a dense core and got more rural character as it moved out. Yes.
Thank you for helping me clarify that. Questions?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Can you revisit why Planning Commission denied?
So the review criteria that Planning Commission and Town Council use, that they were inconsistent with those review criteria, and that was the decision making, their decision for making the denial recommendation. I mean, I can go through each one of them. It was just a lot of it was dealing with the fact that when this plan came through, it was that commercial node that was discussed, and that it is eroded to the point where it's no longer a commercial development. And the fact that you've got 1,400 plus homes in that area, or 1,800 homes that bought in, think that there was going to be a commercial development out front of their neighborhood, are no longer having that opportunity.
Can I speak to that?
Well, yeah, I just, sorry.
I think he wants.
Are you going to answer his question, or can we ask other questions?
So I was going to refute, or at least.
You can stand. You can stand. Just stay at the mic so everyone who's watching can hear you.
Sure. My name is Mike Hughes with Thomas & Hutton. I did have for the report criteria, and I did bring a couple slides, or at least some things, to kind of respectfully disagree with Kevin on the criteria. And the first one is the growth framework, right? And so when you talk about it's inconsistent with the intent of the town's comprehensive plan, if you look at where the orange and the yellow and the green dots are, those are village nodes. And so those are the places that are supposed to be the gathering areas, the places you meet, shop, and work. And you'll see there's a node at Gibbet at 46, there's a node at New Riverside Road, and 170 and 46. There's not a node there, so I would respectfully disagree that this isn't consistent with the comprehensive plan. The next one is the PUD. So if you look at the designation on the Jones Estate PUD, the yellow designation is residential. right? So again, all of Cypress Ridge is designated as residential. The mixed use is on the opposite side of the road at Church Point. And so we have 25 acres of Beaufort Crossing, and we have a couple other commercial developments in there. So I would say that it is consistent with the PUD. So that was item number 2. Item number 3 was it's not consistent with the master plan, but we're up here at this application respectfully asking for an amendment to that master plan. So it isn't consistent, but again, that's why we're here, is to be consistent with a revision to that master plan. And the 4th was traffic. And so it is true, we have, when we did commercial, when Davenport did the traffic study, they counted internal capture. But the overall traffic generated from residential, low-rise, what's classified as multifamily, even though it's attached single-family townhomes, is 17 peak trips per hour. And commercial would be somewhere in the range of 110 plus or minus trips per peak hour per direction. So really, it's a net reduction in traffic when you go from commercial to residential. So again, the intent of internal capture is to reduce the traffic, or at least model what's intended to not go to the public streets. But in this instance, it really is a matter of the traffic would be reduced just by virtue of the
Look at us.
Oh, sorry.
Look
Keep
at
looking at me.
him. Don't be fussing at our planning
I'm looking at the
director.
monitor there. We're tight. We're tight.
I know.
Yeah.
But you're trying to tell us about
Yes.
it. Thank
So those were the 4 criteria that were outlined, and I feel like we do meet the requirements for consideration for the amendment. The other thing I would like to point out, and again, I think Kevin said it, is we do have the ability to convert. It is within the development agreement, and it's in the PUD and the concept plan that you can convert commercial to residential up to a total of 400 units, and those have not been done. Furthermore, anywhere in the red, you can do residential, and allowed use within village commercial is residential. So the only reason we're in front of you today is because we're adding a street system. And the road that we're proposing to connect through is what triggers us being here. So it's about the traffic pattern, it's not necessarily about the use. And we did have a meeting with residents, and I do know some of the concerns. One was, number one, they didn't care for residential units facing Mill Creek Boulevard. They preferred not to see the units there. And we can get them to fit entirely on the cut-through street that we're creating, right? The connection street from Wooden Wheel all the way to Mill Creek Boulevard. We would still have ones that are on Oak Barrel, but we would not have any that would necessarily face Mill Creek Boulevard if we needed to. Second was, and the street itself. So there was concerns that there would be cut-through traffic. But as Kevin pointed out, it is a right-in, right-out, so you're not going to get cut-through traffic going into the community. You do have the potential of people going from the other direction, exiting the property to get the signal. However, it would be inconvenient to go and make the turn onto Oak Barrel, then turn left onto Wagon Wheel to then go through. So I don't think that's necessarily the case. So I don't know if we get denied, if D.R. Horton's going to do residential or if they're going to do commercial. But I think if they do residential, this is a better plan because it takes the driveways and puts them in the rear. And so Oak Barrel will have a free, no driveway pedestrian pathway that goes along there, and you won't have the obstruction of a bunch of driveways backing out into the main connection street.
Let's jump to more questions. I'm sure you all read, but stay right there. Dan, did you have a question?
Yeah, I'm just, it's a little confusing to me. I looked at your Jones tract that you showed a minute ago, Mike, and but there was a master plan submitted to the residents at one point showing commercial, correct? Okay. And I understand master plans are a great scheme and do change over time. I get that. But what they were sold and what we're giving them are not what was originally proposed. Is that a fair statement?
It's a fair statement. I would also say it's also a change in the times.
Sure.
It also made reference to buying a newspaper and a cup of coffee. So, I mean, 15 years ago, that might have been a coffee shop, but, you know, it has taken so long for May River Crossing to develop in Riverside Village. These properties have been available for, since 2005.
Right.
And we haven't seen, and D.R. Horton's been careful to protect the interested parties of these properties based on the fact that they had a vested interest in the community.
And then, at one point, in the master plan, there was a golf course proposed?
Correct.
Okay, and then that went away.
Golf course went away, and that was actually down towards the Four Seasons area.
Right.
And connecting down towards the other entrance. That's correct.
Right, and then, again, you just touched on the traffic flow situation a little bit, as did Kevin, the changes that would play into that. And you also mentioned that you spoke to the residents. What does that mean?
So D.R. Horton held a meeting, I guess the POA had a meeting and residents showed up. I was not specifically there. D.R. Horton and their representatives were there.
How many residents were there?
Tim, can you speak? Do you mind coming up and speaking?
I'm Tim Stone with D.R. Horton. So we had a town hall type meeting last Tuesday with the residents, mostly the neighbors directly affected by this, which would be around the Argus Circle, and then the townhomes off Oak Barrel Boulevard. So we had a turnout of roughly 30 to 40, which we were super happy about. That was a great turnout for that sort of meeting.
1,400 homes out there.
That's correct.
That's what he asked, like, how many homes are in Cypress Ridge right now?
Total?
It's about
1,400, yeah.
Yeah, and that's why I'm asking the
That's what I
question.
thought.
Yeah, I don't know that that's I know how hard it is to get people to show up. I do know that. We deal with that ourselves, but that's not indicative of a good cross-section of people showing up to voice their opinion. The people that are here this evening, and plus the ones that you said showed up, the 30 or so, are ones that are impacted right this moment, not the overall scheme of the whole place. One question I have, Richardson, is it says in the staff report, and I understand that they have a right for conversion of 4 units residential per commercial. If for some reason this council did not seek to approve this, where does it leave us?
So it would leave them, obviously right where they are, and under the current framework, what they can do is develop their 7.25 acres of commercial space that haven't been converted yet. Or what they could do is go ahead and use that by right conversion to residential, which I understand would convert to a total of 29 units, and develop it in accordance with the existing master plan. Really one of the major changes that's being done here is that internal road network. And with that internal road network, by modifying that, you are, and I'm speaking a little bit on behalf of staff and the applicant here, but what I understand is that by rearranging that internal road network, they can develop a rear-loaded project versus a front-loaded housing project. I would imagine, based off of what we've heard from the residents in Cypress Ridge tonight, who have spoken out a little bit against what commercial development in that area, as well as D.R. Horton, who by all accounts has had difficulty marketing this as commercial development since 2005. There's likely going to be a residential product in that place. So they do have a certain by right ability to develop residential in that area. If I'm correct, and I'm going to defer to staff here, they would still have to go through the development plan process, which has its own criteria, including the consideration of the traffic analysis and the adequately served by public utilities. But as far as coming back before town council, they wouldn't have to do that. That would be, development plan is a staff and planning commission decision.
So on that, we all have to realize commercial, there are certain areas where commercial doesn't sell and everything's hot to be residential. And so some comfort in a denial, I think it gives residents, no, there's not going to be commercial there because they're going to do the buy right to residential because residential sells. The problem we're having is it's 29 more homes that are going to impact schools, and we have the schools over here saying no more, stop it. You actually have residents that agree with the applicant, which is rare, that they don't want commercial. So where do we find the fit? And what are those rules for them? Because I heard buffer, connectivity, buffer, don't build it at all. And sadly, that's not our world. But we can always ask, where's the generosity? But what do they have to, can planning and all, can the public have that ability to say, hey, let's sit here and we want more of a buffer. We want to keep our berm. We want all of this because it's in the cards. It's going to get converted. If we denied it, it's going to get converted.
If I can, just
And they don't
point
have to.
well, point of clarification, the conversion's already happened. So, yes, the conversion's already happened. So they have the units. Yes, they have
Can
the
they go backwards and go back to commercial?
Yes, they could.
Really?
That's the Jones estate is
Crazy development.
Well, can I jump in again?
Yeah.
I'm confused even more now because if it's already been converted, which I did not understand, and the planning commission denied it, what are we saying?
It's the road layout. Again, that's what's triggering all of this because of this road connection through here is what triggers anytime you have a master plan and then you make changes to the road network, that has to go back through the process.
It's considered a major amendment, which triggers it to come back to council.
So that is really the only topic right this moment, not whether they get the 29 units or not, because they've already been converted.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
It's just the road.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
So what happens on denial? What happens to the road network then?
Well, what happens on denial is that the applicant still has the opportunity where they could potentially have a front-loaded product that would be on the road here, and then they would just have to get the necessary development plan permits associated with that.
Where's the public ability to look at that? Is that
PRC, the planning commission?
Well, obviously, this is the conceptual master plan. If they moved forward with that, then it would go through the process, which is the DRC, Planning Commission, and it would be on the permit finder map as well.
And do you have the ability to speak to buffer? And
A couple of things.
Like, can we
Yes, ma'am.
and listen to residents on whether they were the first owner or the last owner or the second owner or the next owner?
Yes.
A lot's changed in master plans, and it was supposed to be commercial, and the whole world of connectivity. You know, things have changed since 2000. Number one, different mayor. You know, I wasn't the mayor that said that, but that council should sit at our council today and see what some of these decisions have caused all of us, and nobody knew patterns and, you know, gathering places. And growth framework wasn't even here in 2000. That was during the last recession because it kept us the lights on working on something. So anyway, that's just a thought or a statement.
So are we, a staff opinion, please? So if council denied, then they come to you, and does that give a better position for staff to work with them? Or if we just approve, it just goes on through the way they've submitted it?
You know, some of the comments, and you know, I've looked at this plan and have concerns as well, is the houses that are fronting on Mill Creek here. You know, that was one of the major items that I talked to the applicant at the very beginning, and you heard a public comment said that, you know, they're not opposed to some of these connections. They're not opposed to the rear loaded. They are opposed to having houses that front out onto Mill Creek. Mill Creek Boulevard here that just exit right out into 170. just because of the flow of traffic that's going through here, just did not seem appropriate to have homes right at that location. Plus, it's pushed a little bit further back, so from a accessibility standpoint, no one would ever have an opportunity to walk out to the front area. Their walkway out here is in essence a major thoroughfare.
It's similar to Dillard Mill. I mean, I know this place. I've got good friends that live here in Dillard. I think it's Dillard Mill, that little cut in, the right in, right out before you get to the red light.
Yeah.
I think these are the townhomes. That's the models they're kind of using with rear entry, not like wagon with those are the best townhomes ever with the front entry. But I mean, it's no different than in another location. But we're not here to.
Correct.
That
We're not
on
here
paper,
to.
y'all are.
Yeah. The biggest thing is we talked about that road network, the buffers. There's a 150 foot buffer, a residential buffer off of 170. So as you can see, they've kind of proposed. They've actually went a little bit further, and that buffer is a building setback buffer, meaning that they could potentially actually have property dip down into that buffer area because it's more of the building setback line. To if there's additional space that was needed. However, they're proposing to have that alleyway at that 150-foot buffer. There's the berm that people are referring to. It's right along the roadway. Any development that happens at that location, that berm is going to be removed. I know that there's a lot of landscaping out there. We would try to work with the applicant to keep as much out there as possible, since there aren't going to be any driveways out front there. If there are trees that could be saved, we would work with them and then look to any other kind of enhancements along the front, as well as the buffering along there.
I don't mean to be stepping over everybody here. I'm sorry. I don't think the question was answered.
Sorry?
I don't think my question was answered.
You want to repeat it one more time?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Is it better for us, the town? In other words, if we deny, they have by right, they come back to staff. If I'm saying this right? I think I got it backwards.
I understand.
Okay. So I guess what I'm trying to get at is which is the best methodology for staff to work with the client and see the needs, try to meet the needs of the residents, which is the best method, either denial or approval.
Councilman Wood, if I may jump in here from Mr. Eicher, I think the difficulty with answering that question is staff isn't certain necessarily what DR Horton is going to do. So from a bargaining position, a strength position, I think staff would prefer to have more time to discuss this with the applicant, but there's no guarantee that the applicant is going to have to discuss this with staff. So they can go with their alternative, that alternative product number 2. And it's a little bit of a calculated risk if you deny it. If you deny it, then they can move forward with that commercial product that we talked about. We think
They would have not changed the document.
and we think that it's very unlikely. And then on the other hand, they could go forward with the front-loaded product that doesn't require the alteration of the traffic network.
And it's homes on the Argo.
And so I think I understand your question, and I think it's a difficult, to be honest, I think it's a really difficult question for staff to answer because staff's obligation is to, analyze it under the criteria and see how best it fits there. But from my perspective, since I'm not staff, I would say I think, obviously, if you approve it, they still have to go through the development plan, and you're almost delegating some of the smaller issues to planning commission and to staff to work out in conjunction with the residents, such as ensuring that there are adequate buffers, but it's going to meet a certain design. If you deny it, the whole process starts over and it kind of reopens that board to maybe modifying these 27 homes or 29 homes, so those 7 that are up on Mill Creek Boulevard are reoriented vertically rather than horizontally, or perhaps and I don't know, I'm not an engineer, but perhaps moving those lower onto, is it Argo? Argo. So they're not right up against Mill Creek Boulevard. and perhaps allay some of the concerns of the residents that way. It's hard because you're getting, where everybody is right now with it being designated as commercial. You've heard from both the applicant and what appears to be the community. They don't want it commercial. But you've also heard from Planning Commission, who's denied this application because it's an elimination of a commercial designation, which is essential, and I'm kind of rambling here, but it's essential to a planned unit development. Planned unit development by state law is required to be a mixed-use development. It's required to have a mixture of uses that are compatible with one another, and as you start to convert out all that commercial, it really just becomes almost, despite you have a daycare, but it's largely a singular use out there of residential, not just mixed building types, but mixed use. And so that's why Planning Commission made that denial, is because it is incompatible to certain extents, or arguably incompatible with some of the criteria, the comprehensive plan, the existing master plan, obviously, that's why they're doing the amendment. But to answer your question, in my opinion, there's a risk in denying it, because they can build what they're permitted to build now, which is I think all people agree is not an ideal product, but I do think that risk is minimal, and it's just calculating whether y'all think they'll come back and work with the.
Well, another thing is to just take a hold on it and get everyone around the table and talk about it, because we've changed from things on paper that looks like what you have up here. Actual real people live in there, and they do matter. And if 5 people show up, or 1,812 people show up, or whatever the number, 1,800 people. I mean, a lot. To really work on it, and what's wrong with trying to make your neighbors happy? And if it's a berm or trees, we did it with Old Carolina when that was in our face, and there was nothing we could do about it, and townhomes went up on a golf course. And you can find room for a berm. You can find room knowing what by right is. I'm really torn. I'm really torn, because I thought denial, we should follow Planning Commission on so many different sides to it. And when you hear people, like again, they took the time to come out here and were very polite at public comment and very concerned about their neighborhood. I just think maybe we just hold on and really meet with these people and try to find something that people can swallow.
I have
Sorry, we are not even going today.
If you don't mind, just to sum up, I know there's a lot of questions and
I haven't even gone on this side.
sorry, whether approve or deny, or what that means for the development moving forward. And I know we ultimately would love to get to a decision and resolve it. However, tabling it is an option, because what I would say is one of the biggest differences, the uses are the same either way, it's the layout. The layout from a planning perspective and exercise is, if speaking about 29 units, with the proposed amendment, you can do a rear-loaded product, and that removes that Argo lane, say that, Argo correctly, versus if you go to a front-loaded product where every single lot has a driveway and a curb cut. So that's the biggest difference. So if it were denied and they don't bring forward a different amendment, they could front-load that product, which has bigger implications, and I think raises some concerns that we've heard this evening, versus the proposed layout, which allows for that rear-loaded product. You can't get that rear-loaded product, or at least I don't see a solution to do a rear-loaded product with alleys and townhomes by following the approved current plan, if that helps.
Hit this side on here.
Yeah, I'll just start. I'm a little more confused than I was before after I read everything. But I only have heard 2 people that have spoke tonight that love the idea. So I'll bring that up. Everybody says they would like it if they did this, if they built 21 instead of 29 and turned this one that way and the other one the other way. I've got a daughter that owns a house in there. The people that live on the interior part of there, they aren't crazy about this either. Even though they're not here, they're not directly affected as much as you guys that live right there don't be looking at it. I don't know why the Planning Commission obviously wasn't totally satisfied with it. Our staff wasn't totally satisfied with it. So I could not approve something that with this many ifs and ands, I couldn't support it. You know, if you go back to the drawing board and try to make everybody happy, then that's a sensible thing to do. And another thing is, commercial property, believe it or not, is very, very important, because if everybody continues to convert commercial property every opportunity they get to build one more multifamily unit or single family unit, the taxes on everybody is going to be so high that a lot of people aren't going to be able to live here. It's going to only get worse. Talking to my family that lives there, they'd love to have some type of convenience store or ice cream shop or something without getting on 170 and having to go. You know, that's a lot of folks in one little area, not for even a convenience store. So that's where I'm at on it. I can't approve what I'm seeing.
So before I get to my question for Richardson, I would say that I think consideration should be given to everyone in this situation, in the sense of we've heard the concerns of residents, and we even see the detriment of what could happen with front loading those units in terms of where that road system is going to be, and denying tonight would allow that to happen. I would also like to give that same consideration, though, to the applicants, in the sense of, if we put this issue on hold, that's adding another layer of bureaucracy, and keeping in mind that if we have people who do come towards to the town and they're following the processes, there should be some type of medium there, where I don't want us to, belabor, an applicant and what they're trying to do if certain conditions are met. So with that being said, is it possible, Richardson, to approve with conditions that would allow it to go back with some of the stipulations and the concerns that we've heard tonight, in terms of approving it based on having a redrawing of whatever their current plan is, or removing the option there of those homes and front loading that parking? I don't know what it would look like, but I'm saying, would that be an option opposed to just either denying or putting it on hold? Because it seems like denying would give what the opposite of what the residents are voicing that they want.
Yes, ma'am, Councilwoman Frazier, and I think that's you're right. You can do an approval with conditions. The big question is, how do you structure those conditions so that they're tied to the criteria, so that they're legally enforceable? But also, how do you phrase those conditions so they actually address the ills that you want to address, that you are fixing the issues that this plan presents in a way that doesn't so substantially limit their ability, the applicant's ability to develop, that you do it as an effective denial, but it also addresses the community's concerns, which are obviously, they've been very clear about, I think, and they've been very clear about it. And that's one of the reasons why, I think Mayor Solga had, I hope the applicant is willing to consider tabling this, coming back to y'all in a month after working, because I think we all are well enough. We've all been around Thomas and Hutton and the design team that D.R. Horton has to know how skilled and talented they are to be able to modify plans to address some of these issues. They may come back and say that they just can't do it with their, within their applicant's budget or within the constraints that they're looking at. But certainly now that they have heard council's concerns, they've been on the record, they've heard the planning commission, they've heard staff, they've heard the community. Give them an opportunity, hopefully, to come back with a product that better addresses those, even if it is, as Mr. Hughes said, a vertical realignment of those Mill Creek Boulevard homes, or perhaps moving them to another location nearby to kind of offset some of the dramatic impact they would have on the entrance as they come through the community. I mean, that, to me, that seems like the best use of y'all's resources, the applicant's resources and staff, as well as hearing the community.
Can you guys come back up?
Did that answer your question?
I'm leaning toward tabling. But I only want to table if you guys are willing to go back and try to work out some alternative with the community.
So we are, I want to be mindful. We've been working with staff probably since February or March on this, and I'm hoping we don't need to go back to Planning Commission, go back to CRC Planning Commission, 2 months later go to council. Is there a means to which we can work with the council and work with staff and council, or does it have to go all the way back to square one to make a modification?
No, I think. Red means it's on. You had me nervous there. Red means on time. No, I would think that you don't have to go back to Planning Commission because, Planning Commission denied it. So there's really no reason to go back to them at this point. And because of the way that the UDO is written, this isn't like your traditional PUD approval where you would have to go back if there was a modification to something. So I would think that you can, depending on the scope of the changes, I think you could avoid having to go back. And also, again, being mindful of the applicant has worked with staff, but I do think that having heard your concerns as well as the community's concerns, they can better address those and maybe modify this product so it works for them, it works for y'all, and it's a reasonable solution.
Would that mean another community gathering?
Absolutely. But we're happy to invite the entire community. We tried to address those we felt were most urgent.
I'm not making a decision, but here's a recommendation. I think staff should be there because there's an educational piece that I think staff can provide to the community that would help them in the process.
Absolutely.
So, just this is my thought on, Bridget was asking me a question, her thoughts versus tabling it. I think we're going to be very sure of what the approval with conditions is going to be if it comes back. Right now, like Richardson said, how do you draw up those conditions? So I'd urge you to look at that and listen to them. I mean, there's actually room across the street, I would think, where the ones already built, that you could maybe put landscape. I mean, I just think if you would be creative and know their residents that are going to be here long after D.R. Horton leaves Cypress Ridge, maybe sitting up here one day, that you need to listen, and maybe they're just not heard as passionately at a planning commission. I don't know. I didn't watch planning commission for this particular one, but I think it gets you to just go back for one more month. And it sounds like it's not going to go back to planning commission. So, not a question. Too quick. That is a question. You said 1 acre for 4 density units up to 400. Do we know how many? Is that in the whole plan, including 4 seasons? Or what's the up to 400 mean? Yeah. You said it was...
Correct. It's 400. In fact, portions, it was also inclusive of part of New Riverside. So New Riverside has already taken...
What number are we at? Can we find that out before next month? Where are we on the conversion?
Not yet.
I bet he knows, but I'd rather staff do. And then our new tree ordinance that we passed, that we are utilizing all over Bluffton and everywhere. What is that? Because that's a treed area where you go in. What are the requirements for the buffer? Are we utilizing our new tree ordinance standards?
We are, and
are?
We are, yes. Remember, there's certain spots on here where there was some trees that were...
That's correct. So, and even the location of the lane was stopped specifically because there's a 42-inch live oak that's just beyond. We did do a tree and topographic survey. I learned my lesson from the last time. Yeah. So the layout was based on trying to preserve trees. There's also a couple live oaks that are along Oak Barrel that also are being preserved.
And then is it really connected to Four Seasons? Is the roadway connected now? Because I'm not so worried about Four Seasons going through Cypress Ridge. I'd like Cypress Ridge to have the ability to not have to drive all the way to the red light, because that's the community that's been here the longest, quite frankly. So I like that they're able to drive. I think they'll use that more than what you said, the reverse, but I don't.
So Four Seasons has rights to go onto.
And so did Cypress Ridge.
Cypress Ridge does not have rights to go onto.
What?
Four Seasons.
Crazy.
Four Seasons is a gated community, and that's the way it was established in the original. Yes.
Well, we dropped the ball on that one.
Yeah. Not when you were mayor.
No. Wow, that's something's wrong about that.
We were told the connection was for emergency vehicles only.
Mayor, I have one more question.
Thanks, ma'am.
This is a legal question. And it's funny, I had written it down right before you said it, but, so they have the by right, which is well established. But in that development, there's more land in there to be developed, right?
I feel that we have dedicated every bit of open space. Anything you see on that map is now, even places we previously had established as residential, this is the last development area for Deer Horton.
So there's no room to move any of this. Richardson kind of alluded to that a minute ago.
No, even the spaces that Deer Horton still retains, I would say it would be disingenuous to turn those areas, having been not committed as residential previously in some of the other phases. So this is really the only area where it's truly designated as some future development that would be appropriate for adding units. There's a lot of spaces in phase 18 that it's just, I don't think it's appropriate. So, but yeah, entitled rights, this is it. So we're at 18 years and we're finally
So this
wrapping
is
it
the
up.
last of it.
This is the last of it. This is the last of their entitled rights, which is, 29 units or 7.25 acres of commercial.
Thank you.
By council.
I move that we table this with the understanding that the developer and the community meets again with staff.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Approval to, next is 8, approval to authorize a task authorization of Goodwin Mills and Kaywood for engineering services to implement May River Watershed Action Plan update recommendations. The value is at $202,690. Kim, I don't know why we didn't put you all together, but we did. Wanted to keep you here longer.
Kevin needed to say it. We're keeping it fresh and for y'all.
Okay.
Anyway, thank you so much. And what I'm here before you is we have an existing MSA with these consultants, which is the Goodwin Mills and Kaywood team for engineering services. What we are looking for is a task authorization to begin to implement recommendations from the 2020 May River Watershed Action Plan update. For a quick reference and history, the action plan was developed in 2010 and adopted as a supporting document to the comprehensive plan in 2010. That went through an update process in 2019 to 2020 and is currently a supporting document to our existing comprehensive plan and will be moving forward. Coming out of the new action plan update, there were a number of recommendations that were included in the strategic plan and fiscal year consolidated budget. And that is what brings us here today. Under this task authorization, what we're asking is for these consultants to begin to do some geotechnical, which is essentially feasibility work, to ground truth some of the modeling that has been done in the action plan update. Some of you may recall staff was doing water quality modeling of the headwaters units, sub-watershed units of the May River for a number of years. As part of the action plan update, we had the consultants complete those water quality models. They identified 11 highly impervious sites that may be contributing excessive stormwater volume, may not be generating pollutants, but a lot of runoff coming from them. And those might be our most prime sites for impervious surface restoration projects. However, to be able to prioritize those, we need to know what the soil conditions are, what the groundwater conditions are, so that we get the most bang for our buck. So when it talks about the 11 projects designs, or 11 project sites being geotechnical and the preliminary designs and feasibility, that's what all of that package of that task authorization is. It's ground truthing the model so that we can start moving forward with projects to improve the restoration of impervious surface in the headwaters. Additionally, other tasks that were included in the action plan update that will be included in this would be identifying 15 additional impervious sites we're talking large impervious areas so that we can keep the water on site and prevent runoff, as well as creating a guiding policy document that would help us to identify opportunities and a framework for public-private partnerships that would, if we identify a highly impervious site that is not public, say a school or town-owned or what have you, if we are going to do a project on a private site, give us some guidance for that, as well as framework for our stormwater ordinance fee in lieu of program. All of those details, as they're drafted, will come back to you for workshops specifically on that policy document. So that's what went out as an expression of interest to the firms that we currently had under MSAs, specifically Goodwin Mills Kaywood, McCormick Taylor, and Wolpert. After staff evaluated the scope, the analysis, the proposed approach to it, and schedule, we're recommending that we authorize Goodwin Mills Kaywood to move forward with this task authorization for $202,690. And the next step would go ahead to do a project kickoff meeting in mid-September and start moving forward. More of this would come back to you, obviously, as it's developed.
Questions?
Can you spend a lot of money tonight?
Yes, sir, I am. I'm trying to get things done for you and our citizens.
I think that's what we heard, get it done.
Get it done, trying to get things done.
What is the picture under your background? I have no idea what that is.
Oh, that's this one?
I thought it was Town Hall, but it's not.
No, that's actually
Bluffton,
New Riverside, the school out there.
Bay River High School?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
I believe that's what that one is.
Okey-doke.
But it's an example of a highly impervious site that we could do some retrofits on potentially.
Any other questions? Okay, if not, is there a motion to authorize the town manager to execute an MSA task authorization in the amount of $202,690 with Goodwin Mills and Kaywood, Inc. to provide engineering services associated with the recommendations of the May River Watershed Action Plan 2020 update and May River Watershed Action Plan impervious restoration water quality. What's that right? Yes. Water quality project. There's a second. Any discussion?
Get it done.
All in favor, state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That's unanimous. Next are, thank you, Kim.
And if I may, thank you, Councilman.
Thank you.
Hamilton was out there fixing the pump to pump water across the street.
But y'all brag about him when we get through this council meeting. Next, are there any consent items that anyone would like to be pulled off for more information? All really good reports. I would go on for y'all in the audience, look at the item number 1. All of our reports from police and finance and everything is all in that one section. Anything pulled? If not, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All in favor, state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That's unanimous. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you.